Good evening, folks. Welcome back to another Wednesday night hobby hangout. I apologise for missing Monday, folks. I was not in the best of health, but yeah, I'm feeling much better now. Thank you very much. So let's have a look and see who we've got in the chat. Excuse me. we had Lord Maiden in nice and early. Hello to you, Lord Maiden. Mark Wright in as well. Hello, fella. How are you doing? Palmsy there, nice and early. Says good evening to the Renos. The BlackJack Arenos, that is. Thank you very much. ASDF, nice to see you, fella. Thank you as well. Your name's at the top of the board there. Thank you very much for joining the Patreon. Peter Cooman, hello to you. Says, glad you're better. Just in time for my Christmas holidays. Yeah, I mean, I'm not 100%, but I'm 100% better than I was, that's for sure. I'm well enough to be here in front of you, look, that's for sure. Blizzards says, hello to you. Ortega says, hi, can't stay too long. Looking forward to seeing what's on the painting table. To be honest, mate, tonight's going to be a bit of a... I'm just kind of going to wing it, really. I wasn't really prepped for painting stuff, so I think I'm just going to... let me just press the right button. I think I'm just going to carry on with my Malifaux stuff because it was on my desk. I don't think I've done any painting since last Wednesday's painting stream. So yeah, I'm gonna crack on and we'll just crack on doing a bit more Malifaux, I think, tonight. Tony Howell, good evening, you lovely people. Hello, Tony, mate. How are you doing? Good evening to Christian. Christian, your 3D printed stuff, mate. You're going to make me spend money, mate. I'm definitely getting more and more influenced by the stuff you're cranking out. That Hulk specifically as well, mate. I love the Deadpool bust because I've been thinking about kind of like getting a printer to do that kind of stuff. But the size and the quality of that Hulk model, really nice, mate. I know it was multiple parts and it probably took something like 37 hours to print all told, but well worth it, mate. It's still quicker than paying for something and waiting for it to arrive, that's for sure. Busey's in as well. It's about time to pop the paint lids, get your glues, knives, and whatever else out. Sounds dangerous. Lord Maiden says, looking forward to seeing Andy. It's been too long. I don't wish that upon you, any mate. That's why we keep going back to this screen, so you don't have to look at me for too much. If I'll paint like that, that'll be better, won't it? Jim Zorm says, I'm actually at home hobbying while this is live. That doesn't happen very often. Welcome, buddy. Nice to see you live. We've got Bob Zunk in as well. Hello, Rob. How are you doing, mate? We've got a few faces in tonight, definitely. We've got Peter saying he's early. Nice to see you, Pete. How you doing? Yoakum says, good evening, folks. Final touches on his Skaven warband tonight, and he's trying out the Green Stuff World colour shift on the Catacombs terrain. First of all, good evening, mate. Second of all, I wouldn't mind trying some of that colour shift stuff myself, actually. I was watching, for those that don't follow him, MS Paint. He's got a channel which is specifically kind of like sort of painting channel, but it's aimed at anybody with kind of any physical disabilities, or he has MS, hence the name of the channel. So he kind of like ranks different painting sort of styles based upon how sort of friendly they are for people with any kind of disabilities. And he was using the colour shift stuff to paint his Lumineth. What are they called? Lumineth elves, whatever they were. I forget what the kind of the full name is. But it looked really nice, and I was tempted to pick some up after seeing that. Where else are we at here? Ian, good evening to you. Pomsy saying apology not accepted. Screw you, mate. Connor, good evening to you, mate. Andrew says, work decided to dump 4 meetings in the last 3 hours. Don't worry, I'll be there to re-liven the conversation when it's clear. No worries, mate, no worries. Peter says, drunk, I bet. I tell you what, mate, chance of it being a fine thing. I've got fridges full of beer that my wife bought for the Christmas period that have not been touched, mate. I've literally spent about... I must have had pretty much 3 days in bed, really. Just, not that I was kind of bedridden, just that I just couldn't be arsed. Like, I was just, you know, when you just, like, you're kind of ill, and you're just feeling a bit kind of down the dumps, a bit sorry for yourself. When I'm ill like that, I either do one or two things. I kind of ignore it, and I just kind of power through. And generally, that's what I'll do. But every now and again, I'll get hit with a bout of something. And it doesn't happen very often, to be fair. And all I want to do is just kind of hide away and just get over it. And that's kind of how I've been the last few days. Lee Burns, good evening, mate. Says, glad you're feeling better. Yeah, I'm feeling much better than I was, mate. Thank you very much. Tom Ferris, good evening to you. Robson, glad you're better as well. Thank you. Jason said he's got a couple of brews for the celebration. No surprises for you lot. I'm on my hot black currant here. Adam Edgar, good morning, mate. It's his first time he's been up this early and not driving someone else, someone, somewhere, or organising the household. Nice to see you, future boy. How are you doing? Congrats on the new job as well, mate. Rob saying that's an awesome mini. Yeah, I mean, I kind of showed them off last week. But yeah, so there's this one, and then there's another couple of these. These are called the Death Marshals. So there's another couple of these ones. Let me just move that one to one side. We've got this one to do as well, with the kind of the flames and stuff. Not sure if we'll get to that one tonight. I'm just kind of taking my time with them. I'm enjoying them. And then we've got this one as well, kind of dragging around their flaming coffins with them. But yeah, I just thought because we can see the face on this one a little bit better, hasn't got a big hat like the other ones. Just we'll make a start on that fella tonight. Tony Booth Leiden, good evening to you, mate. Saying good evening, glad you're feeling better. Thank you, sir. Peter says, guys, don't forget the thumbs. It's a thing. Yeah, thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever. Just don't forget to do them. Where else are we up to now? Of course, that just jumped off my screen. Of course it did. Peter Kuman says he's painting some more Imperial Guard while he waits for his new bolt action stuff to arrive. His Blitzkrieg Germans got shipped. Nice one, mate. On the way. Jasp says these kick-ass Malifaux models and lore convinced me to order the 3rd edition rulebook, which came in the mail today. Can't wait to dive in. Awesome, mate. I'm glad you're enjoying it too. I've got a little bit of a Malifaux addiction going on at the minute. I'm really enjoying painting these a lot. I've been reading while I've been stuck in bed. I've been reading like all the extra lore and stuff in the rulebook. I even dug my old Malifaux stuff out, which we might get to at some point tonight. This is from when I was playing back in 1st edition. My Malifaux bag with all my old models in. So if we get some time, I might show you some of them off tonight. And funnily enough, as if by magic, Weird Miniatures sent me an email a couple of days ago, which was awesome. So yeah, we might see more Malifaux on the stream very soon. VJ says morning, folks, just popping in. Nice to see you, VJ. Christian saying, yeah, you can definitely get some quality prints these days. I think it helps, mate. Like yourself, you've got a bit of experience. You kind of you dialing stuff in. You know when something goes wrong, whether it's something you've done or whether it's been something just there's a problem with the file or whatever. But yeah, I've been impressed, mate. I've been impressed with what you've been doing, mate. Keep it up. Ruas321, hello Ruas, says catching the live stream for the first time. Great channel. Thank you very much. Very kind of you to say so. Frantic's in as well, saying our YouTube live addiction is back. Do you know what, folks? I missed it as well. I was really close to still doing it on Monday, and I thought, if I just do it a bit more subdued, we'll not have a topic, we'll just have a bit of a chat. And I thought, who am I kidding? I am like I've hardly got out of bed all day. The last thing you need is me just sitting there just going, just getting cold sweats and that. Not what you needed. Evening, James Bray. How are you, mate? Tony Howell's cleaning and building his Raging Heroes. I saw your kind of little mini review, mate. They're saying that they're a little bit fiddly, but they're lovely. There's quite a few kind of sort of miniature companies who do some really high quality resin sculpt, but I think sometimes to become more realistic, some of the parts become so fragile and so tiny. I think the Harry Potter stuff from Night Models was the same. I mean, if you see the studio paint jobs on them and the studio models, they're up there with the best models I've ever seen. But then compare that to the quality of the stuff that got shipped out to people by the time ones broke off and arms snapped and things like that. And I think there's a trade-off. That there's a real skill in being able to sculpt something that looks fantastic, but without it being like sort of so fragile you wouldn't want to play a game with it, for example. Maybe it's a bit different for things that are just like to be painted and sat on a shelf kind of thing. Everyone's saying hello to Ruas. Welcoming in. Thank you very much. VG is in the last day of the family getaway. Oh, family getaways, mate. I wish I could have one of those at the minute. I could really do with a holiday with the family and escape the world, I think, at the minute. Tom Ferris says it's a bit cool here in Texas. I bet it's a bit cooler here, mate, in the Northeast. What kind of temperature? You'll be in Fahrenheit, won't you? So what is it here? I know to get from kind of Celsius to Fahrenheit, it's normally double it and add 30. But I don't know if it works when the numbers get really small. So it's probably only about, what's that? It'll be about 38 degrees Fahrenheit, 4 degrees C here, something like that. It's pretty chilly. ER910 says greetings, finishing his corn bloodbound this evening. He's just got Heroes from the Start Collecting box. Just put my drink down there. Nice one. Realm Lords, that's the word I couldn't remember. Thank you, Peter Kuhlman. Thank you, Adam Edgar. Ruas says greetings from Denmark. I used to know Danish for hello. It's gone now. I had a Danish pen pal when I was a kid. Long story. My dad worked down the coal mines in the northeast of England, and the mines had a big strike. And somehow, during that time, the Danish miners kind of were in support of the British miners. And so what happened was a lot of their children, the Danish miners' children, sent letters over to England, and we ended up with pen pals. And I had this Danish pen pal who I wrote to for a number of years when I was a kid. And he sent me some Lego for a Christmas present once. That's how I kind of remember. So I used to remember, I used to know back in the day what was Danish for hello, but I can't remember now. Dave saying, good to see you healthy again now. I feel 100% better, mate. I'm still probably a couple of days away from kind of like back to fighting, like to 100% kind of thing. I'm still getting a little bit sweaty now and again and stuff, but I'm a million times better than I was, mate. Thank you. Lumineth Cowells. That's the one, mate. I couldn't think of the name. Peter says, it was a lovely day here at midday, about 11 degrees. Yeah, you come a bit further north, mate. A lovely day is if it gets into double figures at all. Busey saying 3 days in the scratcher. Not good, mate. I just get bored, mate. I just like, there's only so much, I couldn't even tell you the crap I've watched on YouTube and stuff like that. There's only so much you can do. I've watched the entire first series of Peaky Blinders, because I hadn't seen that. So I spent a day in bed kind of watching the first series of Peaky Blinders. What else have I watched? I've watched loads of conspiracy theory YouTube videos, which I get hooked on. I've been watching videos randomly about people who build really small houses, like tiny houses, and people who convert like ambulances and like Mercedes Sprinter vans to like mobile homes and stuff. I kind of got hooked on a YouTube rabbit hole of watching that stuff. And then I've also listened to loads of like podcast interviews with like ex-criminals and stuff. I've been down a right old rabbit hole the last few days. Too much time on my hands. That's what it was. VG says, that's called malangering. I've never heard of that word before, mate. 3 days in bed sounds like bliss. Yeah, do you know what it is, mate? I'm not one for sitting about. I get really... Like, if we go on holiday and stuff, when that was a thing, when you could go like to a different country and that, I can sit for like about an hour max and read a book or something like that, and then I've got to be up and doing something. I've got to go and do like kind of out on a jet ski or something, or go for a swim, or I've got to go at the bar and get a drink and watch some sport or something like that. I've got to be up and doing stuff all the time. I'm not good at just kind of like sitting and winding down. That's just my natural kind of way. So being ill is like, I think I end up getting myself in a worse fettle because I get bored of sitting about. Where was that one again? James says he's picked up Mortal Realms 43 in Tesco randomly. I think they got some of the Tesco's got the original ones in, but they tend not to get them in like afterwards unless somebody's ordering them in, I suppose. The only place I've ever seen them for sale is in Forbidden Planet. VJ needs to get up and do his 5k at 5 a.m. That'll sort you out. Do you know what it is, mate? I went to the gym on... What day was it? It was Thursday, I think. I went to the gym on Thursday, just before lunch. Me and my wife went together. First time we've been to the gym together in forever. And I got on the running machine, and I knew straight away I didn't feel right. I was kind of like... I just felt all my energy was gone, and I said, oh, look, I'm going to kind of knock it on the head. I'll wait for you, but... And that was when I knew on Thursday, I knew I was starting to come down with something. But I was all right Thursday. By Friday, it kind of kicked in. I'm saying it's been a while. It has been a while, mate. Jacob said he's been looking for blackcurrant at the grocery store, but no luck. Is Vimto something you get over there? Vimto is what I've got tonight, but it's kind of like blackcurranty type stuff. Tom Ferris says he's enjoying a rather pleasant Mexican brandy. I would never have considered Mexican brandy, mate. Something I'll have to look for. I'm not actually saying that. I ain't that keen on brandy. Whiskey, rum is probably my go-tos. Pete says he's doing some repairs to a ruined Rhino from eBay. Probably use it for his Death Guard. That's a good move, mate. If you can get the old paint off and repair it. Somebody who may be in the chat today was talking about BioStrip, which is really, really good for getting old paint off, mate. Check that. John says, evening all, dudes, a snail's... Evening all, that dude's a snail taking his house with him. I see what you mean, mate. You're about the miniature with his coffin. Lee Burns has never played Malifaux, but the minis look amazing. Where does it sit compared to other skirmish games? In terms of what, mate? I mean, model size, like how many models do you need? You're probably talking about between 8 and 10 maybe max per side. Board size, it's 3x3, so one of the smaller games. Time wise, you're probably talking about 90 minutes, something like that for a game once you know what you're doing. And the rules are free to download. You can go and get the rules free online. I wouldn't say it was complex, but it's not as simple as, say, a Warcry. There's like, I've got the cards with me here, but basically like each model, the rules are relatively simple, but then each model has some like of its own abilities, if you like, which are on the card in front of you. And the new cards for 3rd edition are actually really good. So on the front side, you've got your stats. On the back side of the card, you've basically got all the abilities that your model can do, and it's broken down into like active abilities, and then like combat abilities. And it's a really, really good game. I mean, it's been around for like 11 years now, nearly 12 years, and it's on to its 3rd edition. I'm kind of surprised it still flies under the radar a little bit, considering it's been around so long. I think one of the things is Weird are not great at marketing their game to people who don't already play it. They do a fantastic job of telling their current customers and their current fan base what's going on. Their website's great. Their app for the game is fantastic, but they're not good at kind of like reaching out wider. They sent me an email, like I say, recently in the last few days, and I think that they're starting to make some changes. And they did mention that they'd seen my stuff, and maybe they've heard me saying about how poor their marketing's been in the past. Paul says, evening, just finished up first piece of the 40k ruins for his brother. Pictures are up on their Facebook page. I will check them out later, mate. Thank you very much. Always look forward to seeing your stuff. Lord Maiden says, take my holiday, I'll fill in for you on here. Do it, mate. Russ says, hello, equals hedge. There you go, mate. Excuse me. SDF says, painting a single Shadow Stalker without the cloak. I haven't got round to my Shadow Stalkers yet. I must get some paint on mine as well. Mike G said he's just wrapped some Christmas prezzies. I need to, and he's waiting on the mail still for the rest. I need to pick up a couple of last minute prezzies for Mrs. Burdis. I've got some stuff, which to be fair is clothes that she bought for herself, so I've been a bit shitty for that kind of stuff, but I've got some stuff that I know what I need to buy. I just need to go out and buy it, really, or get it shipped. Where are we up to here? Peter says he's watched all of Valley of Tears over the last few days. Not heard of that, mate. Clint Dawson, good evening, Clint. Says greetings from Canada. I know how to say that in Canadian. Hello. Unless you're French Canadian, of course. Says painting his 4th Witch Elf for Warcry, pushing his contrast and non-metallic metal skills. Pushing contrast is a great way. Even if you're still getting to grips with the basics of painting, getting your head around pushing contrast. It's more of a learned thing, really, about sort of pushing the high spots and stuff like that. But non-metallic metals, it's probably one step too far for me, that one. Kenneth Paulson, good evening, mate. How are you doing? Lord Maiden's having a chat to Lee Burns there. Yeah, I kind of forgot to mention that one, mate. It uses decks of cards instead of dice, and it's very much scenario driven as opposed to kind of killing models. You don't really get any kind of like points or anything like that for killing your enemies unless the scenario is about that. Mike G says Peaky Blinders was a fun series. I couldn't get into the last season though. Yeah, I've only watched the first season, mate. Me and my wife are watching Kingdom at the moment, which is about the Navy Street MMA fighters, which is pretty good. We're on to like like nearly 2/3 of the way through season 2 now at the moment. Enjoying that one. Peter Nicholas says malingering means you ain't really ill, or it's only in the head. I thought that was a hypochondriac. I've never heard that word before. James says if you want YouTube rabbit hole to catch a predator, is a hell of a rabbit hole. It doesn't sound like my kind of thing, mate. James Soms is 30 degrees here and snowing at about an inch an hour, mate. It's a typical December day in Western New York. I've been to New York in the winter, mate, and it was snowing, and it was absolutely beautiful. I imagine it's not great when you're like sort of like knee deep in it all the time. But yeah, we've not had any snow here yet. It's been cold enough. It hasn't seemed to have come down yet. Tasty Brain Drain, good evening to you, mate. Yeah, I am feeling a bit better. Thank you very much. VG says, I was joking, by the way, but I thought Andy would know the word. I've never heard of it, mate. Never heard that word. Geekzilla, good evening, Geekzilla. Peter Stockdale, good evening to you too, mate. James is working on the last of his Shadow Stalkers. I have seen the other ones you've been doing, mate. You've been posting them in the Patreon Discord, haven't you? I thought it was yours I'd seen. Peter says, Valley of Tears is a 10-part series about the Yom Kippur War. That'll be why I've not seen them. I don't watch a lot of war stuff. And Ed Handley, good evening to you too. So let's, now I've kind of caught up on the chat there. And Krabby just sneaking in as well. Hello, Crabster, how you doing? Let me get let me get cracked on with this. I think what we'll do is we will start with we're going to use the Saigo Brown to do the what's it called? The coffin. Right, let me move my microphone across a little bit so that you can still hear my dulcet tones while I'm painting. Colton Lane, good evening to you, mate. So we've had snow down here in Tennessee already. Not much, basically just a dusting, but it's also always cool to see when it doesn't disrupt my ability to leave the house. Yeah, I mean, in the UK, we kind of, when we do get snow, we kind of whinge our tits off about it, to be fair, because as a country, we're not really set up for snow, so we don't have snow tyres on our cars, we don't, like, the gritters never come out in time, like, nobody has, like, bags of rock salt or anything like that in their garage ready to dig themselves out, nobody has snow shovels or anything, so whenever we do get snow, like, the UK kind of grinds to a halt, so we're pretty rubbish about stuff like that. Like, when I used to work for my old company, my European partners and stuff always were amazed that I didn't get like snow tires on in the winter and stuff, like winter tires. But yeah, nobody ever really seems to. But yeah, we don't really get heavy snow. Every now and again we get like a little bit that'll kind of cause a bit of a problem, but it's more self-inflicted than the amount of snow we've got. Let me just grab, that's the brush. Where are we up to there? Stu's in as well. Good evening, Stu. Says evening all from a soggy Scotland. Pretty standard, mate, isn't it? Soggy Scotland. VG says, I've always thought malingering was a little bit sick, but sort of wallowing in it and milking it. Like I say, I've never heard that phrase before. I don't even think there's an equivalent. I can't think of like an equivalent phrase for just kind of like wallowing in self-pity a little bit, like milking it. I guess we'd kind of say like kind of pulling a sickie, I suppose. But no, I can't think of what we would say that was that kind of a phrase, to be fair. Geekzilla's printing and painting terrain for Frostgrave 2nd edition. Nice one, mate. What is it you're doing? Are you doing kind of Wizard's Towers? Are you doing scatter terrain? Are you printing like PLA stuff? Or are you doing resins? Or let me know what you're up to. Where are we up to there? Matthew Wilkinson, good evening to you, mate. Krabby saying, how you feeling, mate? Better hope. Yeah, I'm still not sort of back to full 100%, mate, but I'm a million times better. I'm out of bed and I actually left the house today and got some fresh air for the first time in God knows how long. So yes, much better, thanks. VG says Sogland. Yeah, Soglam the Brave. Pretty damn soggy it is up there, even in the summer. Colton says, absolutely nobody down here is ready for it, so anything besides a dusting is just chaos. If there's ever a threat of it happening, people... Oh, I'll just get it back in focus. People flock to the stores for bread and milk. I don't think we ever go so far as to, like... To like panic buying and stuff like that, or like stocking up for the winter type thing. But like, I used to always struggle with my old car. My old car used to have a rear wheel drive Mercedes, and we live on there's a very slight. Hang on, let me just put this on the manual focus here, so it's not keep going in and out. There's a very slight incline, like from my front door where the car parks, to. Let me just get this right for you folks first. Yeah, there's a very slight incline in my car. If there was any kind of snow or any kind of like sort of frost on the ground, my car just could not get out of its parking space. It used to be an absolute nightmare. So we kind of like, we get bogged down a little bit like for stuff like that. And if I had winter tyres on at the time, it would have obviously made a huge difference. But like I say, we never have like... We never go that far. But yeah, like I say, it tends to be just more self-inflicted. The problem here in the UK is it's normally so wet, or certainly in the northeast, it's normally so wet that when we do get snow, it turns to kind of like slush and that pretty quickly afterwards. Here is your weather channel. You're talking about the state of weather. Tom Ferris says, if it looks like snow in South Texas, it grinds to a halt. Yeah, I think it's must be the same everywhere, unless you live in somewhere in Europe where they're a bit more used to it. Krabby says, taking the piss is what we say. Yeah, exactly. John says the phrase is man flu. Yeah, man flu is a bit of a catch-all, isn't it? When somebody says that they're ill, the instant kind of catch-all phrase is, it's just a bit of man flu. That means that you think you're ill, but you're not really. That's our bit of catch-all phrase. Ed says Melanian is used mostly in the forces over here to pretend to be sick to avoid unpleasant duty. I have honestly never heard that phrase before. Maybe I've not watched enough war films there. Maybe that's what it is. Ed says batch. Oh, Vizis, I'm sure the Germans have one of their awesome compound words like sick and rotten kind of word. Yeah, it's been a long time since I did German at school, mate, that's for sure. Ed Hanley's batch painting his Rune Wars reanimate archers tonight. 8 to finish and the army is done. Nice one, mate. There's some really nice models in that Rune Wars releases. It's a bit of a shame it never really caught on. Because there was some promise in that. But I guess that was Fantasy Flight's first foray into miniature gaming, and then they got all swept up in Star Wars and stuff, didn't they? And Rune Wars was kind of left, because I think with Rune Wars, if I remember right, they had all the same sort of like availability problems that they've had with Star Wars. So let me just get some paint here. Krabby says, hope you enjoyed your sick days, mate. I've informed payroll. Yeah, this is my back to work interview, mate, just to make sure it goes down in the book and it doesn't happen again too often. I don't think I've missed a live stream from being ill before. I'm not really ill very often. That's the thing. I'll get the odd bit of cold or something like that now and again, but very rare am I actually sort of properly ill that I have to take any time off or anything, or that I have to go to bed. I certainly don't really get. Can't remember the last time I had to go to the doctors for anything. So it's probably the fact that I've not been anywhere for nearly 12 months. My immune system's probably just pretty low. I'm not actually coming up against anything to Actually, I'm going to paint over the tops of those chains. I'm probably not coming up against anything to actually give me any immunity against stuff. So I'm picking up the little bugs. And having a little one in the house who's at nursery, he'll pick up anything that's bloody going, that's for sure. Gigzilla says PLA and the bridge set from Devious Games on an Ender 5 Pro. I'm not familiar with Ender games, but yeah, sounds good, mate. Nice one. Be good to see what you've done by the end. Lord Maiden says when it snowed in 2018, I had to leave early. It took over 2 hours to do a 30-mile journey, and even then we had to leave the car at a car park nearby and walk the rest of the way home. I think we've had it like. I remember like there's been the odd year when we've had it bad like that, and I've been like working in Manchester or something like that, and set off to come home, and then the weather's turned bad on my journey and stuff like that, and the motorway it's before the gritters have been out and the motorway starts to fill up faster. So there's been the odd time, but generally we get away with most of it in the UK. So for all we don't really get the nice summers, we tend not to get the harsh winters either, to be fair. So right, let's first kind of coating onto there. Give that brush a wash. Busey says press the ESP off button in the car, snow and it's all gravy. Oh, it just the back wheels would just sit and spin, mate. It just wouldn't have any grip at all. That's what it was. Obviously all the weight being over the front wheels, it just wouldn't go anywhere, mate. Didn't have the power to shift it. Well, it didn't have the strength really to get it up the hill. Margaret Gigzilla says also in Glasgow, Scotland. Believe me, we get snow up here, worse up north. Oh yes, you definitely. Scotland's a bit of a different animal when it comes to weather anyway, mate. We get it bad here. You guys get a nightmare when it comes to bad weather. Marcus says, my dad taught me how to drive in the snow by making me do donuts and other unsafe activities in icy, empty parking lots. Yeah, that'll help, mate. That'll help. Matthew says, Room Wars minis were awesome. I did not like the game. I don't remember much about the game, to be honest, mate. I remember they had them little trays, didn't they? Like a little bit like, what's it called? Like Song of Ice and Fire type thing. Duffy Mikowski, good evening to you, my friend. Says, greetings from a snow-wracked Levittown. I'm viewing today on a sick day with an eye injury. Hope you're okay, bud. Colton saying, hopefully Atomic Mass Games can do a better job with the supply and demands for Star Wars stuff. I'm not expecting them to do a better job, mate. The manufacturer won't change, and the supply chain won't change, and the distributor hasn't changed. So I honestly, I think you get away with it with Marvel because they're only making like sort of one or two products at a time. I just think I just don't think it's going to be any better. And I think also as well, everyone says about how well they do with Marvel, but I don't think it's physically sales wise. I don't think it's as popular as Star Wars. Star Wars randomly is like the 4th biggest miniatures gaming range in terms of sales worldwide, and I just don't think FFG's supply chain is just up to the job of getting them out in time. So time will tell, but I'm honestly not expecting anything sort of different from them. Certainly not for some time. And if things do get better, it was probably going to get better under FFG. Clint Dawson says, when we're finally able to play together and play games again, which game are you going to play first? Do you know what, mate? I'm not really sure. I've got a million things to be playing. I obviously want to play a Warcry Catacombs because I've got that new set and haven't played that yet. And I miss playing Warcry, to be fair. I also have Bot Wars to review. So I got the 2-player set. You'll remember me painting it ages ago. And unfortunately, due to lockdown and not being able to get together to see people and play the game, I've not been able to play it to even review it. So at some point when things open up, I'll be getting a few games of that in so I can review it. And it's well overdue as well. So that's why I'll need to play that pretty sharpish. I want to get my Wild West Exodus stuff back out again. I've been painting up that in the background as well, and painting some of the Wayward 8 and bits and pieces. So I'm looking forward to playing some Wild West Exodus. I've got my Malifaux stuff that I'm looking forward to playing again. What else? Oh, I actually got some stuff sent from Olmec Games as well, who do the Drowned Earth. So after I'd included the Drowned Earth in my lore videos the other day, or last week rather, they sent me out some bits and pieces as well. I've been building some today. I'll show you what I've been building. So I've put these together, and they've just had a first dusting of an undercoat. So it needs. That's why there's some bits missed. I've just kind of give it a quick dusting over first time. So this is I think these are the Wayfarers, I think. So, and these are metal models. So there's one of the Wayfarers. I've got no idea of the names and stuff of the different models yet, but I'm sure that'll come with time. This is another one. Spin around so you can see the back and stuff. So that's that. We've got, I was going to say this guy, but it's some kind of a bird thing with a beak, so it might not be a guy. Who knows? Got this model as well with a crossbow over the shoulder there. So yeah, this like I say, I've missed plenty of bits and pieces of the metal with the first pass of the airbrush. So that's that one. We've also got this model. So, and then the last one from the set, which is probably my favourite in the box, is this big guy. So when I was talking about elephants with machine guns, when I was talking about the Drowned Earth, this is kind of what I was talking about. So the sculpts are really, really clean on these actually. They did send me a number of other bits and pieces as well, another faction box and some individual minis and the very beautiful rule book. So yeah, so we'll have some Drowned Earth stuff to look forward to as well next year. So in the meantime, I just need to get those painted up and get them ready to go on the channel. Where are we up to here? Lord Maiden said, I thought man flu was because men get ill and can't do anything until they get better, whereas women can get ill and still do stuff. I think it's basically it's a case of like, yeah, like man flu is like a sarcastic term, as if to say like whenever a man gets a cold, it's like it's 10 times worse than a woman kind of thing. So there's a bit of a kind of sarcastic thing about it. However, I'm sure I read somewhere there's actually some kind of research that flu affects men and women differently, and that actually like man flu is actually scientifically a real thing. I won't be ever saying that out loud to anybody else. I'm just sharing it with you lot, because I'm sure that one will come back to bite me if I ever say that to my wife's face. But apparently it's scientifically proven that man flu is a real thing. But yeah, it's used as a kind of like a bit of a derogatory, like, oh, it's just a bit of man flu type thing. So now I decided I was going to do the coats on these Death Marshals a different colour to that of the other ones. So if you remember, these are the models that we painted over the last couple of weeks, I think, which was Lady Justice there and the lawyer. So we did those ones. So I was going to do the jackets on them a different colour, but I do like it when there's like a kind of like a common theme that just pulls everything together as a theme for a little faction, especially when you don't have a lot of models in the faction together. So what's this one, like 3, 4, 5, 6 models, and I just think the red coats will just pull it all together. So yeah, I decided to stick with the red. On the artwork for the game, like on the cards and stuff, I think these have like kind of almost like yellow jackets, and I almost considered doing that, but I think it'll look better than being red. And I'll just do it as I did with the other ones as well. So just gradually, just building up the layers basically with a contrast paint. This one being Fleshed Hair is red. Just come in and just gradually layer it up and layer it up and layer it up, and it just gives a nice deep rich red to it. So let's have a look. Krabby says, oh, where did it go there? Krabby said, are you well enough to be back in work? Did you see your GP or a pharmacist? Have you been given any medication or any side effects I should be aware of? Are there any adjustments that could help with your attendance? I remember giving everybody those kind of interviews, mate, when I was the boss. Those back to work interviews. Do you foresee any reasons why you'll be off again any time in the near future? Is this a continuing illness or is it fully healed now, kind of thing? God, yeah. Everything's red tape, isn't it, and bureaucracy. So that basically when you ring up in a week's time and go, I'm ill again, you go, well, you told me you were fine. You told me there was no problem. So I'm just going to dot your wages this time. What a wonderful world we live in. Right. Peter's chatting a tasty brain drain there. Ed says it was a big pain. Yes, Rune Wars is by far the best fantasy battle game I've played. Fortunately, we have a good bunch of players here. I wasn't sure if you were painting them for something else, mate. It's good to see you actually painting them for Rune Wars. It's nice to see some games that are getting played. Right, I think we'll try a little bit of. Which one do I want to use? Contrast tunes. I think we're going to give him brown trousers. Which colour do we use on her? Can't remember the colours now. Snakebite leather, maybe? Yeah, I think it might have been a bit of snakebite. We'll try that one on his trousers. Dave says Hornby Railways has stopped shipping miniatures worldwide due to Brexit uncertainty. Do you know what GW is doing regarding Brexit? I saw that, mate, because I think Hornby and Airfix potentially might be the same company, and I saw Airfix was doing that as well. They've essentially said that until January the 3rd, they're not shipping out any more European orders because of Brexit uncertainty. They don't know what like kind of tariffs and stuff are going to be. I think the difference with GW is, mate, is that they don't sell direct from the UK. They have like businesses, they have like sort of offices in other countries as well. Now I think like things like tariffs and stuff are one of the reasons Australia gets screwed over. So that does worry me a little bit from a British point of view. But I can imagine they've probably just pushed more stock into the European hubs. They've probably pushed more stock out into America as well. So it wouldn't surprise me, mate, if they make some announcement. It wouldn't surprise me if they put their prices up overseas. But nothing's been announced of yet. Not as far as I'm aware, anyway. But yeah, it's a bit of a worry, to be fair. The fact is, it's gone on this long. I mean, I'm not going to get into politics and stuff, but the whole Brexit thing, I mean, it's been going on that long. You think there would have been some kind of agreements made before now, but hey, I'm not even going to pretend to be close enough to that kind of situation to understand the full ins and outs. Krabby says, well, oh yeah. Marcus says, I normally only get sick once a year, but I think I'm not going to see anyone for 9 months this year. I might not get anything. I tend not. I'm lucky if I get sick once a year, mate. To be fair, I think for me, it's the fact that I've not really been out there anywhere, like picking up like just like general little bugs that I would normally just be immune to and just shrug off. So I think what tends to be happening is my immune system is probably a bit low because I'm not getting out there. I'm not doing anything. So it's probably kind of catch-22, mate. Not being out and about isn't helping me. Right, there's the first layer of that. I think we'll give them the same colour gloves as well. Kind of like sandy brown gloves. And again, we'll get a thinner brush for that one, I think. And we'll just build that one up. VGC is going to head out to news agents. They've got a Mortal Realms poster in the window. Might pick up a copy if the value was there. Not I'll collect either of those armies. In that case, mate, the value's not there. If you don't really want them, they're okay for models just to kind of paint or whatever. The best value comes is when there's paint in that issue, or when there's any terrain and stuff in that issue as well. But if you just want some models just to paint, mate, they're not a bad deal. But Yeah, I mean, they're great value if you want the models, but if you're just buying them because they're cheap, it's probably not great value. Chatting Master Bob. Good evening, Bob. How are you doing? Says just bobbing together, painting it in Indomitus necklines while watching. Thank you very much for chatting, mate. Thank you very much for joining us. Blizzard is saying much of his Rune War stuff's going to be repurposed for Kings of War. That was my initial thought, mate. I think there's a lot of people use Rune War stuff for Kings of War stuff, and I assumed that's what that might be as well, but I assumed incorrectly. Right, that's we'll leave that to dry a little bit, and we'll get that on, and in the meantime we'll get some grey onto the boots. Marcus says, since his dad was an army brat, I was exposed to all sorts of weather. He felt that I needed to be able to drive under any conditions, so he'd always have me practice driving in terrible weather. Yeah, we get like loads of rain and stuff. I'm never worried about driving in bad conditions. Like, I know enough to not like be daft about it, but we get inconsistent weather. I think that's the problem in the UK. We can get like 3 different seasons in one day. It can be blazing sunshine when you leave the house. It can be torrential rain kind of in the middle of the drive, and it can be snowing by the time you get back in the car again at the end of the day. Like different times of the year. So yeah, it's just unpredictable and inconsistent. Not like VG and Adam being able to kind of nip down to the beach for a barbecue and being able to predict the weather. I always find when I'm on holiday in the States as well, they seem to have much better sort of weather predictions, and I assume it's the size of the continent. Like, you can track it across the continent, the way the weather's moving over. Like when they're almost like, I remember being in Florida when there's been kind of hurricanes and stuff, and it's like, oh, it's due in 4 hours, and it's like, wow. We can't even tell you what the weather's going to be like in the next 10 minutes. And it seems to be like relatively predictable because as it moves across the country, they kind of like, they see the wind direction and everything else. But yeah, I assume with us being a relatively small island in the grand scheme of things, the winds across the sea and stuff maybe distract that a little bit. But I'm not a meteorologist. I don't profess to understand any of that stuff. Right, we'll just put a bit of black around the collar there. That's that one. Well, this is going relatively faster than I expected. We'll just keep building them colours up. I'm going to let that one dry a little bit, and I think we'll start on one of the other ones. Let's get this guy in. That must be warm in here. The paint's drying on my tile pretty quick. This Flesh Tearer's red looks like I'm just actually dipped it in a pot of blood. It's got that same kind of like oily opacity as blood as well. For those like first time you've been on this, seeing this painting like this as well. So this is Flesh Tearer red contrast paint, 50-50 mixed with the contrast medium. It really just thins it down. You don't get any of that kind of sort of like watermark kind of coffee stain type marks that you do when you use it straight out of the pot or like a wash. And it becomes a little bit more like a thinned down ink. And it just gives if you build it up just like layer by layer, gives a really nice kind of rich colour to it. So that's what I'm doing, if you're wondering. I'll just slap that on, as they say. Tom Ferris says he's tried playing Saga but not much interest around here. I thought it was a pretty solid game though. Warcry seems to be the game of choice in these parts. People keep telling me about Saga, but it's not I'm not really that much of that much interest in historical gaming, to be honest. and it certainly doesn't really get played around here either. I remember years ago there seemed to be a small group of people that were playing Saga, but it seemed to kind of die off as quickly as it came along. So it's not a game I've ever had a demo of. It's not a game I've ever seen played. I don't really know a lot about it, so it doesn't make it a bad game or anything. I don't know enough really to kind of give an opinion. But yeah, it's another game like many that just doesn't see the tabletop in my sort of local area. If it's not Games Workshop, it's they're few and far between, unfortunately. There's a bit of a Mantic scene that's kind of opened up over a period of time, and hopefully it's still there when people can meet up again as well. And I think I mentioned it on the last live stream as well. There's quite a few of the local guys seem to almost just be giving up on the hobby now, selling all their armies off, selling bits and pieces off. Bought a PlayStation 5 and just kind of playing online now. I saw one of them online the other day, like just saying, like, God, I used to have this thing called called wargaming as a hobby, like where on earth did I get the money from? So I think like they've almost given up, sold all their stuff off, and realizing just how much spare money they've got now. So unfortunately, I think some of the opponents that I ordinarily would have had might not be there anymore, which is a real shame. Let me catch up on the chat here a little bit. James Storm saying the first game battle will be Warcry. James Bray saying, what would people use for a longer grass effect? I could use like 2 packs of GW Tuft, but it'll cost a fortune. You just buy longer. If you just you can get longer grass, like scatter flock, whatever it's called. You can get longer lengths of it, mate. That's what people tend to use. And if you're using a static applicator, it stands up, so you get like a really thick, heavy kind of covering of it. That seems to be the way to do it, mate. Right, I need to try and get in there and coat the inside of this this coat, which is a little bit fiddly, but I'm not too worried because we can always tidy up. Let me just get these bits before I catch up on the rest of the chat. This is the moments where you need that little bit of elevator music while I'm just kind of silently just concentrating for a second. Right, I'll tell you what I'm going to do, because I need to get some more paint anyway, so I'll have a quick catch up on I need a drink as well. We'll have a quick catch up on the chat. Let me go back over to here. Tom's saying he's just finished his Blood Bowl team, so he's looking forward to some Sunday action. Nice one, Tom. Evening, Steve Evans. How are you doing, sir? Lord Maiden saying, yeah, they're the Wayfarers, I think. They are the Merc faction, so the other factions can use any of those models, but they can play as a faction or with the Pirates. Nice one, mate. Pomsy saying, yeah, we read something on the BBC about man flu, saying that we feel it worse. Yeah, it's definitely a real thing, I believe. I'm sure it was a man that wrote that, though, to be fair. Pusey saying, in the future, there could be man COVID. And that's probably what there'll be in the future, mate, yeah. Mark says, I know when I get sick, I'm floored for about a half a day, then I just sleep it off, and the next day I'm mostly fine, unless it's a stomach bug. Yeah, I tend to shrug things off pretty quickly, to be fair. Right, where are we up to here? There's a load of chat just jumped in. I do need to catch up. Paul saying man flu is a bit of a joke theme because men generally react worse to flu. There is, however, a body of evidence that men have weaker immune systems. There you go, that's what I'm probably reading. Lobin says, you mean the judge? I did mean the judge, mate. I said lawyer, didn't I? Geekzilla says, sorry, had to nip away for a bit. That's okay, buddy. Welcome back. Just Kev says, hey, gang. Hello to you. Palmsy, thank you very much. He says, just wanted to get different Gear TV off the screen. Money well spent, mate, in that case. It worked a treat. Let me skip ahead a little bit, otherwise I'll be here all night. Matt's saying, good to see Rune Wars being played. Yeah. Gigzilla saying he uses it for Kings of War. VG saying, Andy, did you check with Mrs. B about Blitzball game at the usual time? I haven't checked it yet, to be fair. She's been working, and then I went to pick the little one up, and then she went out to pick something up from the shops. I've hardly seen her tonight, to be fair, just the two of us. Peter says, think I would like my first game to be Bolt Action or Blitzkrieg Commander. Good choices, mate. Mark, good evening, Mark. How you doing, mate? Says evening all. Hope you're feeling better. I'm feeling much better, thanks, mate. Good tidings to the chat as well. Good tidings, I like that. Christian sharing the link for the Patreon there. Yeah, if anybody is interested in supporting me, long-term sustainability and stuff, Patreon's been a little bit quiet this last month. We do have Manny there who's joined us this month, but in order to make this work for the future, I still need to keep growing it. I'm not there yet, so yeah, please do consider. Even if you just click on the link, check it out, read what it's about. If you've got any questions, you know where I am. I'm not going to give it the hard sell. Ed says, I've read a couple of random Warcry warbands from Mortal Realms. Yeah, I suppose you probably could do, mate, out of the Stormcast and the... what's the other one? The choice, it's the... is it the Corn stuff, is it? No, it's the Nighthorn stuff, isn't it? It says, I did look at Kings of War, but I just don't like it as much as Rune Wars. The dial system is just brilliant. It makes it... I forgot about the dials, mate. I forgot it had that. Tom says, do you know any of the lads with the WS10 Gaming Club? I don't know if you're talking to me, mate, or somebody else here. I don't know the name WS10. ASDF says, after COVID, the weather reports here in Iceland have drastically lost their accuracy, and apparently the air traffic was a leading source of data. Interesting, mate. Interesting. It's amazing the amount of things that get affected that we just don't even think about, isn't it? VG saying we had some big storms and flood on the east coast in Oz. We're supposed to be still going today, but it's cleared up, which is great for the last day of the holiday. What have you done, mate? Have you been anywhere special? Have you been visiting family? Have you stayed local? What have you been up to, buddy? Good evening, Warwick. How are you doing? See, several years ago, I'm visiting London, New York. The temperature got up over 85, and everyone seemed to be in a panic at a heat wave. 85, so we're probably talking about 65. Yeah, 30 odd degrees is really hot for the UK, mate. He says, I'm from Texas where it was 110 all the time and I thought it was cold. Yeah, I bet, mate, I bet. Mark says, I think Britain as a whole, Wales and Scotland included, is small in the state of Texas. I'm sure I've read somewhere, mate, you can fit the UK into Texas 3 times. I'm sure I've read that somewhere. It seems to be stuck in my head from one of those pub quiz questions or something like that. Let me skip forward a little bit. Adam saying Melbourne's much more unpredictable. They talk about for 4 seasons in one day. Yeah, yeah, I know what you mean, mate. Warwick's saying, yeah, all the UK is much smaller than Texas. Yeah. Matt's saying they also have Saga Age of Magic. So is that basically just the historical game with magic stuff in it? Jeffrey Higdon saying Saga is very unique and enjoyable. Yeah, like I say, mate, I don't. Other than the minis, never really kind of caught my attention. I don't know anything at all about the game. John saying, what's the other game in the top 3? If Star Wars is 4th, I presume 40k AOS is a bolt action. No, mate, it's not. The way it ranks them in sales is sales of collectible miniatures, and it's 40k, it's D&D miniatures, it's AOS, and it's Star Wars. So for all D&D miniatures isn't classed as like a miniatures game. It's in the top 5. It's the D&D miniatures range is in the top 5 selling. So it just shows basically just like how much that sells. I think what we don't take into account sometimes is we don't always like think about outside of our gaming groups, and we don't always think outside of what you see on YouTube. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think 40k is like 40k might even be double like second place. Do you know what I mean? I think it is so far out there, wide ahead. But I think and I think we hear a lot about AOS because Games Workshop tell us about AOS. but I don't know how. I mean, it obviously sells a lot of models, but I don't know, like, is it like half as popular as 40k? Is it like a tenth as popular as 40k? And even that is more popular than other stuff. I'm not really sure. I've never heard bolt action mentioned anywhere near the top selling stuff, mate. I think the problem with bolt action is because people buy the minis from lots of different manufacturers. It's not like just Warlord stuff, like World War II miniatures games. Like you've got a whole host of different companies you can buy from, and I think that's one of the reasons why they don't get anywhere near the kind of top selling. The other ones I've seen there in the past are things like War Machine and Hordes. They used to be like in the top 3 or 4, I think. And X-Wing miniatures used to be in the top. Well, it used to be top at one point. It was selling more than 40k at one point, which is why I think kind of Games Workshop really give themselves a bit of a shake and change the way they worked a few years ago. John says there's a few guys painting Armada stuff locally. That's good to hear, mate. Yeah, I'll be looking forward to getting my games of Armada in as well. Mark says I never plan on selling any of my armies. Yeah, but I think the difference is, Mark, from what I was saying before, is that you're obviously still hooked into wargaming and stuff. These guys have just given up. They've just said bollocks to it. I'm not just sitting painting stuff for the sake of it. I'm just I maybe don't miss it as much as I thought I would. And there's quite a few of them who were kind of like the more, like, you know, when you get the guys in a gaming group or the people in a gaming group who tend to be the kind of the ringleaders and the people that bring people with them. These two were some of those kind of like ringleader type people, and unfortunately when they drift away, it can quite often kind of sort of like dominoes. Anna, good evening, Anna. How are you doing? Anna says, I think people having wargaming withdrawal are high on vaccine priority list. They should be, shouldn't they? Tom says, Age of Magic is what we played. Okay, mate. Krabby saying hello as well. Phil Campbell just jumped off my screen there. If I can find where that one was. Wow, I am well behind on the chat here. Evening Folks says, Phil features that music currently playing is 100% elevator. I said before, I can't hear it, mate. I've got no idea what it sounds like. Martin saying, don't forget to drop a like. Thank you, Palmsy, for the chat there. Lee Burns says he got Diachasm coming for Crimbo. Wondered about trying to set up a couple of cameras to play with a mate over Zoom. I think it's possible, mate. I think it's probably one of the easier games because it's just placement stuff, isn't it, mate? So I think it's definitely possible. I've heard a few people doing something similar. Tom says you're good at juggling 8 or 10 separate conversations. It's taken me a long time, and even now I'm not great at it, mate. But it's taken me a long time to kind of. It's weird because this is why I've stopped painting for a little bit. Really, is because I need to make sure I've kind of got one eye making sure the sound's working, making sure it's at the right levels. I'm looking at the stream strength to make sure there's not any issues there. Keeping an eye to make sure when the live stream's up. I'm looking at the chat as well to see how things are coming in. I'm thinking of answers to the questions. At the same time, I'm reading the next question to get ahead of myself. So I'm not going to read something that's offensive, if you like. You end up like, by the time I come off the end of a live stream, especially when I've done sort of 2 or 3 hours, my brain is like, it's on fire, like with like, you know, like it's been juggling that many different things. It's really hard to kind of like to just, like if I finish at say 11 o'clock, 11:30, it's really hard to just turn it off and go to bed. I have to go and like kind of like sit downstairs and like have a drink of juice or something, or have a cup of tea and just like kind of calm down and wind down. But I really enjoy it. I love doing it. But it's a skill that I've kind of had to learn over time, just to keep going and keep talking and keep juggling things. Marcus says they've proven that getting kicked in the nethers can be more painful than childbirth. The pain just does not last as long. Yeah, I ain't telling my wife that one, mate, that's for sure. Paul says they already is man COVID, like flu kills more men and tend to get it worse. The only age category where it's killed more women is 85 plus because men don't usually live that long. True, mate, it is true. Lawson Deming, good evening, says thanks for talking up the narrative of Infinity on your vid the other day. I started playing when Code 1 came out, N4 as well, and I'm loving the gameplay, but actually didn't know anything about the story. Hello, mate, by the way, welcome to the chat. I absolutely love Infinity background and stuff. I'm sure I've showed you all this before, but I wonder if I can show you. Let me see if I can. I'm going to try and be all fancy now and see if I can disconnect this camera and spin it around. Let me see. That bright light's going to get in the way. Hang on. Let's see if we can do it. If I go to, is it this one? So that's, if you ignore that bright light there, if I can try and get it, well, I'll have to try and get it to focus on the wall first of all, that's for sure. All those pictures that I've got on the wall here behind me, these are all Infinity photos. You might be able to see there. That bright light that I've got to kind of as a background light isn't doing me any favours. But yeah, these are all my Infinity ones. And I've got a couple over there, the other side, which are Malifaux ones. But yeah, you never see those on screen or anything like that. They're just a bit of art for me in my room. But yeah, I love. Let me go back. I love Infinity as a like as a story, as a like an anime type manga type thing. I find it really interesting, and I don't think a lot of people. I think people just instantly write it off as just it's another sci-fi type thing. So yeah, I'm a big fan of it, mate. So I'm glad it. Just tighten that in again. I'm glad it opened your eyes up to it as well. Let me just focus that back for when I want it. Otherwise, I'll forget. There we go. Palmsy saying Bitcoins are at an all-time high, mate. I bet your house. I bet your house. Thank me later. Nice one. I'll scroll down a little bit and try and catch up. Antonio, hello, mate. How are you doing? He's saying, glad to see you feeling better. Thank you. Good evening, Lee Russ, as well, mate. Listening to your podcast, or your latest podcast, I should say, while I was ill in bed, catching up on all my stuff. Matthew saying, Saga Age of Magic is fantasy miniature agnostic even. Warwick Dog, it's saying Texas is just huge. You can still drive for 12 hours at like 120 kilometers an hour in the same direction and still be in Texas. Yeah, you're right, mate. Jimmy G, hello, fella. Wargames Illustrated just announced Clash of Spears as their game for 2020. Do you know what it is, mate? I think that says more about the readers of magazines, if I'm perfectly honest, because I've never even heard of it. I think you'll get slanted views. I think you'll get slanted views of games, and I think the other side of it as well is, like, I was going to do like gaming awards this year as well, and then I thought actually it's kind of unfair because I've not been able to play stuff. I might be able to do kind of like what's been my favourite miniatures range, or what I think has been like the best kind of like release this year or something. But I wouldn't like to say what's been the best mini game this year because I just not getting to play stuff. James saying it's weird. I'm a huge history nerd, but just really don't fancy historic games. Every now and again, mate, I think I get a bit of a feeling that I want to know more about the history of kind of World War II and stuff, and I'll watch a film like 1917. I absolutely love that film, and it kind of gets you the bolt action feel. And I know it's World War I, not World War II, but it gets you the bolt action feel and stuff like that. And I keep going back and looking at it, and I've got like some stuff, and I think at some point I will give bolt action a try because I've got the stuff and it's got it all painted and things. So it would be silly not to, really. But like getting into Romans or Vikings or like samurai stuff, it's just, I think I just prefer like fantasy. And when I say fantasy, I mean fantasy and sci-fi, as in like made up worlds. I think I like the idea of laser guns and magic and that kind of stuff, really. Let's have a quick. Palmsy said, I fancy some Vietnam gaming so I can play Jimi Hendrix. Krabby said, I like the idea of bolt action, definitely something I'll be dabbling in at some point. Tom saying War Machine's really popular here several years ago but seems to have died out lately. Yeah, when it was in the charts of like sort of in the top 3 popular games, it was a popular game. I was playing it back then in the day as well. But yeah, it's definitely died off a bit. The fact that Privateer Press have now brought out Warcaster. Oh, let me just move this microphone a little bit. The fact that they brought out Warcaster now as well just shows that they obviously know that the sales of War Machine are on the slide now as well, and they're trying to replace it. Mark, good evening, Mark. How you doing, mate? Says, after last week's stream, I've bought Malifaux 3rd Edition rulebook and Fate cards. Just need to sort out a box of miniatures. Nice one, mate. I was just saying before, I dug out all my old stuff this week. Or today, I should say, actually. Dirk says, evening, everybody. I see Andy is ruining any minis this evening. Yes, mate, I have been ruining some minis. I've just stopped to catch up on the chat because I'm well behind. Matthew says, kind of want to get rid of all my Star Wars Legion and play Infinity. Do you know what, mate? They're both fantastic games. They're different games. They're different aesthetics. It's more about what do you enjoy. If you enjoy the background and the lore and stuff, obviously they've both got fantastic backgrounds and stuff. But you kind of know Star Wars. You know what I mean? I mean, there's a lot more to read with the extended universe and all of that. But it's like you could do that without playing the game if it was just the background. Infinity wise, the background, it's a lot deeper and a lot richer than I think most people realise. It's not just kind of generic sci-fi, if you like. There's a lot more to it. But game wise, I would say Star Wars Legion is the easier game to pick up. I would probably say Infinity is the better game to play overall once you understand the game. But either one of those things are also relevant to how many times you're going to get to the table, who do you play with, which minis do you like to look off, that kind of stuff, really. Tissy Brain Drain says, very nice art. Thank you very much, mate. They are literally images from online, just printed off. Just find high quality images. They're printed off I've just got like an inkjet printer that actually prints pretty good quality. Get some nice quality paper, and then just some IKEA frames, mate, and that's all. I think the frames are about £4 or £5 each, and then it's just cost me the price of the ink, really. Lord Main saying, would they be art cards from the art book? No, they're not, mate. Like I say, that they're just printed off. Peter says, honestly, I write Infinity off on the rules. I always play with non-gamers in our group, and it's just too fiddly. Do you know the rules are not difficult. It's one of the things I talked about in the Code 1 review thing, really. The rules are actually not difficult. The rules are pretty straightforward. The problem is that it bombards you with all of the information all at once, and there's a lot to absorb, and that's kind of the problem. But it's not a difficult game as such. It's really, I find it kind of confusing to even try and talk about it. That's why people who play the game will say, it's not that difficult, you've got nothing to worry about, man. But if you're coming from like zero knowledge, it feels like you're trying to climb a brick wall, like without a ladder kind of thing. It feels like you're trying to climb up the side of the Empire State Building, because you seem to get just bombarded with it in one big slug, and everything's in that rule book. Every little kind of like, sort of every little rule that every model has, rather than just saying, also you want to play Ariadna, right? These are all the models, these are all the rules you need to worry about. You don't need to know about anything else. So if you think of something like 40k, you've got the core rules, and then you'll buy a Space Marine Codex, and then there's all of the kind of like the Space Marine special rules. So it's broken down in a slightly more way to absorb it a little bit. If you buy Kings of War as a rule book, for example, you've got the core rules, which are pretty straightforward, and then you turn to the page for dwarfs, what I play, and then all of the dwarf rules will be in that place. Infinity's not like that. Infinity basically tells you, here's all the rules that you need, and here's how you do jumps, and here's how you do hacking, and here's how you do medic stuff, and here's how you do kind of hologram stuff, here's how you do, like, and it basically just, it gives you everything. And then at that point, you then go, right, well, here's my faction. What do I actually need to know? And that, I just wish there was a better way to break that down. I wish they almost separated it out somehow, because it isn't actually that difficult, but it feels it when you read the rules. Lee says, I hope the podcast didn't make you feel worse. It was nice to have some friendly voices, mate, to sit and listen to, that's for sure. Matthew saying the lore for Infinity is fantastic. It is, mate, yeah. Adam saying, to be honest, the lore for most games is pretty amazing if you give it a chance. I've read some that have been stinkers, mate, and they're pretty weak. But very few, to be fair. Like Conquest from Parabellum is another game that's, to be fair, it's been in development forever. It started to kind of pick up probably back end of last year, early this year when it went on sale. Nothing's really happened with it. They've obviously been spending a bit of money with the Beasts of War guys, trying to get that out in front of everybody. So it's starting to kind of pick up a little bit of momentum at the minute. But they have spent an absolute age investing in the background and the lore for that. And Conquest has some fantastic background lore. Things like the Iron Kingdoms, the War Machine lore. People think of War Machine as a really heavy, heavily competitive game where it's basically just like nobody, like these are the kind of events where people would turn up on the day, pick up the latest release, just build it and get on the table. Don't worry about painting. There's no painting standards. Like people didn't even prime the models sometimes. They literally put bare metal on the table, and then they played with terrain which was designed for accuracy rather than visual appeal. So there was like a lot of people use like sort of neoprene, like sort of little rings for hills or for forests, because it played better that way and it was more accurate for kind of measuring for tournament play. And I think people forget actually that the Iron Kingdom's background, which is the background behind War Machine and Hordes and behind Riot Quest and all the other stuff, is really, really deep. There's a lot of it. There's the Iron Kingdoms RPG. It is amazing. It's really good. But yeah, I think people forget that kind of stuff. Tasty Brain Drain says, I really need to play the Infinity RPG. I bought the main rulebook for it, but haven't found anyone willing to run it yet. Yeah, do you know what it is, mate? There's a lot of RPGs that are kind of based on game lore. Malifaux have got an RPG as well called Into the Breach, and it's something I'd love to play as well. But I think people who play RPGs tend to get hung up on like Pathfinder or D&D, and they kind of stuck it. Or some people maybe play like Warhammer role playing game, but they kind of get stuck into those type particular ones. And I think miniature gamers probably don't necessarily play RPGs. There's not always a lot of crossover. So yeah, it's a funny one, mate, isn't it? But it just shows how much effort's gone into RPGs. Like Kings of War are busy writing an RPG at the minute. Infinity Link, Modiphius do the background for that one. There's some really good writers out there. Ian says, Bolt Action really needs another edition. Solid game, but the rules could be a little clearer and could use a smidgen of minor rebalancing. I've not stayed close enough to it, mate. I know they're on second edition now, but maybe that's something that they need to do. Andrew says, everything's bigger in Texas. Ask your missus when you come to visit. As long as the wallets are as well, mate, I might need that. Phil says, play SOTR a few years ago. I don't know what SOTR is. I'm trying to remember. Is it? Although it's weird, World War II, it definitely got me more interested in the history. Oh, Sons of the Third Reich, isn't it? I think something of the Third Reich, isn't it? That's the one, yeah. I've heard of it, mate, but again, don't know much about it. John saying, Paint Colour of the Year award, white. It's a classic. I'll tell you now what my Paint Colour of the Year award will go to. It would go to Talisar Blue. I absolutely love that colour. No matter which model I've put it on, it's always looked fantastic. Chapter Master Bob says, knowing history is a good thing because it's supposed to stop us making the same mistakes of the past, unlike what the powers that be do all the time. You're right, mate. Another thing, and I'm completely going off topic here, is debate and discussion and being able to question things and free speech. That's another thing that we seem to have forgotten how to do as well. Palmsy says, there's something about realistic aspect of historical wargaming that draws me to it. I like the idea of playing out real battles. I think that's the bit that doesn't interest me, mate, actually, if I'm perfectly honest, like playing out real battles. And I think that's maybe why it's never really interested me. I just, like, I kind of, if I'm reading the background lore, I want it to be a novel, like a story. I want to find out something, like, I want to find out like just like a story in the background. I want to be intrigued by it. I almost don't want to read about people being like massacred in a war, real people with kind of real families and some of the stuff I've like watched about like World War II and stuff. There's some horrific things went on there that are, like, that is horrible to think that people went through that stuff. Marcus is saying complicated rules can kill any game. They certainly can, mate. They certainly can. Andrew saying, feel like Privateer Press made every single mistake that GW did when they corporatized, but did it the same span of a year, just after Mark III launch. Yeah, Mark III was a killer. I played in Mark II, mate, but Mark III was what really was a killer, actually. I think the problem with Privateer Press, or not a problem with them so much, but the problem with their game was they needed people to keep buying miniatures. They needed to sell minis. That's all of these companies basically need to sell minis to keep making money. And I think what Privateer Press found was that because like army sizes were still relatively small, even though they'd grown bigger in Mark II, they were still relatively small. They wanted to up the model count. They wanted people buying more stuff, and I think they jumped the shark a little bit with that one. Antonino says, I've actually been playing more board games lately. Picked up Carcassonne recently along with Dune. I think there's a... Board games these days, I've considered doing this as a bit of a topic at some point. Board games scratch a lot of itches. If you're a miniature gamer, but there are some board games which have fantastic miniatures in them. You don't always have to worry about getting the latest armies and that kind of stuff. You don't have to worry about list building. You don't have to kind of worry about buying a load of terrain and stuff. You don't have to worry about the size of the table. You don't have to worry about the rules changing every 5 minutes. There are some really, really good miniatures games. There's some really, really good board games which are really close to miniatures games, but without the kind of power creep and everything else. And they're just kind of complete in a box, if you like. And I think if more miniature gamers, war gamers, opened themselves up to some of those, I think some miniature games companies would kind of struggle a little bit, I think. Yeah, John's saying that's what put him off historical as well. I like escaping to another world. I'm with you, mate. That's exactly my thought process. When I'm kind of playing miniature gaming, I almost want to be in a make-up world. I want to be in like make-believe, if you like. Busey's saying, yeah, the AK interactive promo put me off historical stuff. Yeah, regardless of whether they should or shouldn't have done that thing, the fact that those things are real, like, you know what I mean? It's horrendous. We shouldn't kind of like powder over it, and we shouldn't kind of like we shouldn't ignore history, because obviously, like somebody said, you learn from mistakes of the past. But I certainly don't want it like glamorized, really. Do you know what I mean? Phil says, for rules bloat, try Necromunda. As much as I love the game, there's a massive amount of bloat. It's one of the reasons it put me off, mate. I bought the new Necromunda box set, and it was another one of those things before I'd even like painted the models. Like there was 2 or 3 more books out, and it had changed, and that instantly kind of makes me go, ugh. I think, you know, folks, if you lot are quite happy, I'm just happy just kind of having a normal chatty night tonight, because otherwise I'll just get on painting these another day. But yeah, I'm quite happy just having a bit of a natter, to be fair. Where were we up to there? Because the big just jumped fast there. Oh, Warwick was saying, I like the lore from Frostgrave and Rangers. It's simple but fun. Looking forward to Stargrave. I must admit, I've not read the background lore of those games, and the reason I've not read the background is because when it comes to something like like Rangers of Shadowdeep, I kind of assumed that there wasn't much lore to it, because I see so many people saying, oh, this is a really good system, you can use it for Star Wars, or it's a really good system, I'm going to use it to run a game of, like a Wild West game using Rangers of Shadowdeep rules. So I've always just thought it was a framework rather than a game with a rich background, if you like. I'm obviously wrong. ER910 says, Iron Kingdom started as a 3-part adventure model for D&D. I love the setting. Yeah, I was going to say, I think originally it was a D&D setting thing. Tom says, on my 3rd glass of that Mexican brandy. Yeah, buddy. Hey, I'm really enjoying this hobby hangout, just sipping and painting. Nice one, mate. I'm quite enjoying just catching up. I kind of missed Monday, so it's nice to catch up, which is why I'm not in any rush to get the brush back out now. Chapter Master Bob says, I've almost stabbed myself in the eye with my scalpel 5 times now in the last hour. Maybe I should put the vodka away. I would get yourself some safety glasses on, mate. That's what you need. Secrets of the Third Reich, that's it, mate. I was trying to remember what it was. Peter says, I get what you're saying about Infinity rules being quite simple, but you have to imagine slapping that rule set in an average board gamer's hands on a Thursday evening. It's not designed for board gamers, mate. That's the thing. It's designed for people who like a bit more kind of crunch and a bit more detail in their games. And as I said before, mate, like I don't think the rule book does itself any favors. I would love to see it split down into core rules and then almost faction stats, because they don't put the stats for the models in the rule book because they're everything's free online on their list builders and stuff. But what they do is they put all of the weapons in the book. So when you go to the rule book and you look through it, there's hundreds of weapons, and it's like, well, like, Jesus, how, like, it's really hard to know how much do I need to read to play the game and how much is this reference material. And like, I think for me personally, what's missing is I would love to see cards for individual models. The names are quite hard to pronounce for some models, and therefore, because they're hard to pronounce, they're hard to remember. Because a lot of the models, I wouldn't say they look similar because they're different, but they're like a trooper with a gun and a trooper that's a medic type thing look very, very similar. It's not easy to kind of instantly for a beginner know exactly what they are. And for me, I love the way things like Warcry has cards and stuff. If I could make cards for Infinity with the stats on, which say this is what it's the willpower is and everything else. This is what your this is what guns is carrying. This is its shoot stats and stuff. I think the game would be so much easier to teach somebody. I think it's a game that benefits from being shown to you by somebody that knows how to play, rather than trying to learn it from scratch, because the rule book just goes, here's everything, just get on with it kind of thing. And I think it's come on a long way. I think the Code 1 rules have come on a long way from the original N3 rules by limiting some of the stuff that you need to know. But it still kind of puts it all on you in one big lump. Peter says, and saying we're playing this, I'll get you through doesn't go well. I think it's less about just kind of like dumping it on somebody. They've got to be interested in the first place. But like I say, the basic rules, they're not very difficult. It's just the fact is that if you try and read it yourself, you'll just get overwhelmed, I think. J Redblade, good evening, says thoughts on the diesel punk version of Bolt Action. Can't remember the name, but the minis look cool. I think, are you referring to Conflict 47, isn't it? I think essentially Conflict 47 is Bolt Action version 1, isn't it? With some extra bits and pieces tagged onto it. I've never played it, mate. The models, for me, it's like there are some cool models in it, but you're still just using a lot of the Bolt Action World War II stuff as well. I've heard good things. I've never played it, if I'm honest. I couldn't really comment. Mark says, me and my friends all play 40k and a few other tabletop games, multiple RPGs, but then again, my group of friends are weird that we like so many different games. I like different games as well, mate. It's one of the reasons that I do this channel, is because there's no way I would get to play the amount of stuff that I'm interested in if I didn't do it full time. This year's a bit different, but yeah. Jim says, hell yes, Talasar Blue is a great winner. I try to find places to use it. Yes, so do I, mate, yeah. Crabby says, is your top wet, mate, or is it super dry? Ba-boom. It says there's some crossover. I'm a big role player, though not really into the D20 systems. I much prefer RPGs for narrative players. I feel there's much more to that experience. Yeah, I think there is some crossover, mate, but I think it's a lot of it can be driven by the people that you play with. So I wouldn't. I'm guessing here, mate, to be fair. But how do you, like, when you play your RPGs, do you play with other miniature gamers as well, or do you play with a group of RPG players? And are you the kind of minority that's a bit of a crossover? Because that's where I tend to find when I talk to folks. Christian says, how about a community showcase to end the year? That might not be a bad shout, mate. I might reach out and get some, send some photos and stuff in of what people's been working on and stuff. That might be a nice way to end the year. Eon910 says, Talisar Blue over Gold makes funky green. I've never tried that, mate. Other brands are available. Yeah, I'm not sponsored by Superdry. I was just a bit cold when I came in, so I put this on. Tasty Brain Drain says, it depends. I've met quite a few people who are into both RPGs and wargaming, but I've also known people who are into only one, which wouldn't touch the other with a 10-foot pole. Yeah, I agree, mate, as well. That's kind of what I mean. I just think people who are into both tend to... like, for example, if you're... there are people who will be Infinity players who will love Infinity, will quite happily play in the Infinity role-playing game because they love the world and the universe. But I think if you're like an RPG player, you probably would just dismiss Infinity as an RPG. In the same way you'd probably dismiss Kings of War as an RPG. And I think it's a shame because there's some really rich worlds and universes that go into them things. Like Mantic at the minute are doing it, or in conjunction with Red Scar, I think it is, are doing a Hellboy RPG. And I would guess a lot of people who pick up the Hellboy RPG probably might not even be interested in playing the board game version. And there'll be a lot of board gamers who picked up Hellboy, the board game, probably wouldn't necessarily give the RPG a second look. I find the RPGs, whilst they are they're a great idea, I think the problem is you need a group of people who are invested along with it with you. Like if you're wanting to play a miniatures game or a board game, you can play a board game solo, you can play a miniatures game with one other person. If you're wanting to play an RPG, you need a committed group of people who are willing to put in the time and turn up on time every week, month, whenever it is, and put the effort in. And these days especially, I think that's quite hard to come by. Where are we up to here? Krabby saying, yeah, great idea. James saying, yeah, great idea. Yeah, I think we should do it. Let's have a chat about it in the Discord. Let's get our heads together and stuff. James is saying it could facilitate it. If people are happy to kind of help me out with it and stuff, that will be awesome as well. But yeah, we'll find a place to kind of to put all the different images and stuff together. And it's not like a competition. We're not voting for the best or anything like that. It'd just be nice to see what everybody's been working on this year, because it's been a weird year for everybody. Like even if you've not stopped working and you've gone out to work every day and kind of you feel like some things are not changed, you've certainly not been playing as many games as you used to, unless you live in New Zealand, for example. Then maybe you have been playing more games. But most people have not played the amount of games that they wanted to this year, which has meant that they've probably spent more time painting, or maybe they've lost a bit of love with the hobby. It would just get people's kind of like highlights of the year and stuff. It'd be nice to get some positivity going. Phil saying the minis in Hate were fantastic. Yeah, there were some nice minis in that one. Peter saying, chat away. Chaser says, anybody have any thoughts on Song of Ice and Fire war game? It's a fantastic game, mate. But like a lot of things, availability of the miniatures has really, really let it down. The minis are a lovely scale. They're really like nicely produced. But getting your hands on them was an absolute car crash when it was the time when everyone was getting excited about it. You just couldn't get your hands on the bits and pieces. And that was a real shame, that. Warwick Dark Age says, a lot of the rules as written in Necromunda are ridiculous and useless, and you should consider making some logical changes to how the game parts work, like trading gear between gangers. Yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff, like the trading post rules are in like a completely different book and stuff, aren't they? And like even though they've been streamlined now, the rules, and they've been put into like 2 or 3 books, to me, whilst that, if you understand Necromunda, it might make sense. But if you're somebody new, again, it's like, well, where do I even start? I find a lot of these things are a bit like that these days. James says, I wish some board games did easy rules, complex rules and advanced rules, so you can have fun first time, but really get into it if you want. Do you know what it is, mate? That's a great shout, because like, If I take Armada as an example, the way the rules in Armada are written is actually pretty good. There's the basic rules. Like if you just want to play the game and have fun, here's the rules. And then there's some like additional rules with things like more sort of more accurate wind and all this kind of stuff. And yet a lot of the complaints I heard of people saying, oh, well, it doesn't play like a ship game. It's basically like, if the wind makes no difference, then it's like, then what's the point? And it's like, the rules are there for that. If you want to complicate it further, and I mean that in a positive way, if you want to make it more complex, if you want to kind of add more realism, then the rules are there to do it. But what they've done is they've created a rule set that streamlines it. So if you just want to have fun without having to reference without having to slow the game down, without having to reference rules all the time, there's a version there that you can do that. And I think sometimes people, when they see like advanced rules at the back, there are a group of gamers who just go, well, that's just the rules, and like, why wasn't that just in the rules? Like, or they instantly think, well, it's just going to split the community. We're going to have people playing different rules all over the place. I think people kind of forget that the vast majority of people play with a small group of friends, or play with a small group of folks at the local gaming store or whatever. And it's just about, it's about fun. Armada's never going to be a game that's going to kind of draw like sort of 100 people tournaments type thing. It's meant to be a bit of fun. And actually, I like the fact that there's like, here's the basic rules, here's some advanced stuff if you want to make it a bit more realistic or whatever. And yeah, I think that some games should have that kind of like easy mode, like kind of like harder setting type thing, or like extreme, bit like video game type stuff. Jason saying, keep drinking vodka but wear safety glasses. Yeah. ASDF says some board games implement a first game into their rules to varying degrees of success. Yeah, quite often they'll kind of like, they'll take you through the first scenario or whatever. A game I think that does that really well is, I think, Pandemic Legacy. Basically, you play the first month, which is essentially the pandemic rules, and then the rules change gradually over time, introducing like a new rule each time you play it, if you like, as the game changes. And I think that does it really well. It's a shame you can't go back and play it again. It's a legacy game, so once it's done, it's done. But I still think it's value for money. I played Pandemic Legacy all the way through from the first month all the way through to month 12. And then I couldn't play it anymore. But rather than being annoyed that I couldn't play it anymore, I'd played that game sort of at least 12 times. I think some months we failed some months. So I probably got like 14 games of it in with my wife. I don't think there's many other games I've played 14 times with my wife. I've got more value for money out of that game than I have out of any other game, because we both enjoyed it. So much so that we got like season 2. So I think it's games that kind of can introduce changes to the rules, or introduce like sort of complexity as the game grows. Like, I think Hellboy does it as well with the scenarios, the case files. The case files tell you whether it's an easy one, a medium one, or a hard one type thing. 20 said, I need to find a solo game that involves nice minis and appeals to me. Dungeon Saga and Space Saga were close, but the minis are horrible and the rules aren't easy for a novice. I think the Dungeon Saga rules are pretty simple, mate, and they're pretty straightforward. And of course, you could always use any minis you want. I think the problem is, I think there's an element of people who, like, look at the backlash that Warcry got for how straightforward its rules are. People kind of sometimes think, I keep saying people, like I'm labeling people, but I think what I mean is, I think there's a large group of gamers who associate complexity with a better game, and I don't think the two go hand in hand. You can have some great complex games, and you can have some garbage simplified games, but you can just as easily have the other as well. You can have some fantastic simplified rules games, and you can have some garbage games with like really complex rules. Lawson says, there is some fiddliness in Infinity, but I can teach it to new people if I handle the bookkeeping and just let them make the fun choices. But I grew up playing Battletech, so I kind of like big rules. Some people just like big rules, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I think where the problem comes is when it starts almost breaking over into a little bit of gatekeeping, where people are saying, well, those rules are too simple, so that game's awful, you shouldn't play that, you should play this. Or when people say, actually, well, I'm struggling with the rules to this, and then people just go, what? Wait, what are you having problems with that for? They're dead easy, I can play them, kind of thing. I think that's when these conversations get a little bit kind of like on the fence a bit. I personally just prefer quite simple rules because I like to play lots of different games. So it means I might not get round to playing that game again for some time. And I like to swap and change, and I like to just get straight into it. And because I play sort of people like my wife or my older sons who don't play games very often, they don't play games like they don't play regularly. They don't want me to spend like 2 hours teaching them how to play a game for us to probably not play it again for 6 months. So I just like more streamlined rules. I don't want to feel like I'm kind of sitting a test sometimes. Lawson said I also, where was that one? Just before it about to jump off the top of my screen there. Let me find it back. I also tend to pitch Infinity as being like a cross between Mass Effect and XCOM video games, and that can get people interested. Christian just sharing the link there for Goblin Gaming as well. Thank you very much, mate. Don't forget, if you do any of the we're talking about Infinity, we're talking about Malifaux, we're talking about Armada, Games Workshop stuff, any of those stuff, if please do check out the link. They generally have 20% discount off those kind of things. So yeah, check them out. If you buy through them, I make a small commission as well for sending them that way. If you buy through that link, I should say. Ed's saying a bit of a mix really. There are probably 10 role players to every wargamer if I look at the membership of the various RPG. Yeah, that's kind of just what I mean. It's not that they don't exist. It's just not like a kind of like a definite crossover. James says, did my first order with Goblin recently. Very fast, good website, order tracking, good price, so worth a go. Yeah, it was one of the reasons I started using them, mate. I've ordered stuff from them that's came within less than 24 hours. I've ordered stuff like 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's been there 10 o'clock the next morning. They really are super quick, and the communication's really good as well. Paul says, the Infinity RPG is a great system if you don't like or fancy Infinity. The same rules are used for Conan, Star Trek, and Mutant Chronicles. Yeah, it's I've just said it before. Modifius, isn't it? Who do the Infinity one? Ed's saying much bigger crossover between RPGs and board games, though. Yeah, I would agree with that, mate. Yeah, definitely is. I think it's also the case that there's a lot less crossover between board gamers and miniature gamers as well. There's a lot of board gamers who wouldn't touch a miniatures game because I think they instantly think miniatures game, I've got to paint it. Or I've got to get a ruler out and start measuring and stuff, and I've got to get terrain, and I think like in the same way miniature gamers think of board games of like really complex Euro games or Monopoly or like stupid games like Ludo or something. I think it's just a bit of misinformation really. I'd like to try and kind of break down the barriers between all three, between RPGs, between miniatures games, and between board games. But I'm kind of learning myself all the time as well. Let me scroll down. Oh, Robert's saying, woohoo, a Christmas present just arrived from GW. I'm not allowed to look in the box. Be a good husband. Peter says, anybody seen a movie about Mutant Chronicles? I've not, mate, no. David Mofford, hello, mate. He says, I've just broken out my vintage Citadel Goblin Green. Oh, wow, mate. That'll take you back. Ed says, through lockdown, we mostly play on Roll20. The club I'm secretary of runs 4 games every Thursday with 4 to 6 players. That's pretty good, mate, but I guess you already had an established club. Like for me at the minute, let me just move this camera so I've got a bit more space. For me at the minute, I'm starting from scratch. I don't have a gaming group. I've played one shot of Dungeons and Dragons, which Christian ran, which was fantastic and has definitely got me interested to play more. But it's really hard to get started. I don't have a group of people to even get on Roll20 to start playing stuff, and I don't know enough to run anything myself at the moment. So yeah, with that, I think if you've got an established group from prior to lockdown, that's certainly going to give you a big advantage. Kevin Mohammed, good evening, Kevin. Says, glad to see you back, Andy. Now I can paint my competition piece while listening to your talk. Thank you very much, mate. I tell you what I would say is, thank you, Kevin. Thank you for dropping in. Thank you for chatting there as well. The amount of people that said kind of get well soon on the YouTube post when I just said I wasn't doing it on Monday, there was loads of names that I don't see kind of chatting. It just makes me think there's a lot of people who just come and put it on in the background and just sit and kind of listen in, just happy to kind of hang out. And I might never get to hear from them. So if you are a kind of a secret lurker, please do say hello. It's nice to kind of, even if you don't want to chat the rest of the evening, it's nice to get to know who the audience is. Like we're one big community really, that's how I like to think of it. So it's nice to see who's there. But if you don't want to chat, you don't really have to. Thomas says our group is just starting to get back to play again. Warcry Sundays are coming back. Nice one, mate. Be nice to. I feel like we're a million miles away from ever getting gaming going again. Chatter Master Bob says I've not played a single game, had a day off work, or made any progress with painting any of my armies. But I'm up for sending you pics of the minis I've painted badly. Please do, mate. Please do. I've not played other than the few games I've played with my wife. God. I think I've played one game against somebody this year. I think in the summer when we had our restrictions kind of lifted a bit, I had one game of Warcry with my brother-in-law in the summer where we had a couple of beers. My wife dropped me off in the car. We didn't play outside. We played in the dining room with the doors open. But I think this, even I'm thinking, might have played some like prior to March. But since March, I've played one game against somebody that isn't my wife. Lord Maiden says, that sounds like Mini Gangs, a simple 4 minis aside game that has simple system for young people which can build advanced rules in. It has 3 game modes for varying knowledge levels. I think the problem is, mate, is... these games need to come from the big companies. Otherwise, I'm sure there are loads of kind of like little independent people writing rules and stuff, which are dead easy to get into. But unless they're promoted, unless they're accessible, unless they have miniature ranges with them, unless people can get other people to play against them, they fade away into the background really. Unless you are like avid gamers, like a lot of you folks are like gamers with years and years of experience, and you like to look for the obscure rules, like the obscure games or the little known ones. I think the problem is that those kind of stuff, it takes a Games Workshop, it takes somebody like that to release a simplified game. And I think Warcry shows that there's a passion, there's a need for that kind of game. I think the problem is that unfortunately it's growing bigger than it originally was with all of the extra stuff that's coming in with the new books and things, and it'll get swallowed up by AOS players, if you like, and they'll demand that the rules become more complex, I think, and that's my only kind of. It doesn't change the game for me. I'll still play the game as it is, kind of thing, but I think like they need an entry game, an intro game. I think that would really help, because I think even 40k, I'm not saying 40k is difficult, but it's certainly not simple to know where to start and where to get playing. So people having a bit of a chat backwards and forwards there. Let's have a little look. Paulton, he's found Dungeon Saga and Star Saga very easy to get going in terms of rules complexity. Absolutely love the games, and I also thought the minis were decent. Yeah, I've not got Star Saga, mate. I've never played it, so I can't really comment on that. But I do have Dungeon Saga, and I must admit, it's a much better version of Hero Quest, if I'm perfectly honest. Peter says that was one of the great things about X-Wing. Want to get started with an easy game, pick only generic pilots without special abilities and limit yourself. Peter, do you know what it is, mate? That's probably... Maybe, you know what it is? That's probably the last example of a really good mass market entry level game. It became kind of like all kinds of arms and legs if you wanted it to be. Like it became like much more competitive. But for your average kind of gamer, you know, like some young kid wants to play a game with his mum or dad or something, to pick up that X-Wing starter set and play with what was in the box, and then just buy the ship that you like to kind of add to it, I would say that was probably part of its success. It's just a shame that that's not been replicated with other miniature stuff. Tom says, totally agree. A game that does not need to be complex to be fun. I'd rather play a Warcry than Necromunda. Yeah, that makes two of us, mate. Horns fan, good evening, mate. Says, glad to see you back. You beat Papa Nurgle. Yeah, I did, mate. I give him a bit of a kicking. Christian sharing the link there for Amazon. I actually think the Australian store and the US store, which has been taken off there now, have been shut down because nobody ever used them. But the UK store, the UK Amazon store, is still alive and kicking. So if you are in the UK, then the Amazon link will still work. Warwick says, the Mutant Chronicles movie is a great bad movie. Thomas Jane and the man Ron Perlman. Actually, when you mentioned Ron Perlman being in it, I think I do vaguely remember like the movie poster thing for it, like the cover of the box, if you like. But I've definitely not seen it. Ian says, was in a game dev jam for minis based game, and there was a very active discussion as to where the boundaries between mini based war games and war based board games. It's a real kind of the lines are a lot more blurred now. I mean, the biggest difference is war games, you will measure movement. Board games tend to be grid based or like kind of hex based like type thing. I think that generally is the biggest divider. So whether you're using like a ruler to move or you're using squares on a board to move, it tends to be the kind of the dividing line. But I think games like God Tier technically are a board game, really. I think like Blood Bowl and Blitz Bowl technically are a board game, and I think actually there's more crossover than you would think. Like Zombicide is a fantastic miniatures game, but it's like it's on a grid. You move with like through squares if you like, but I think it's really close. It's really close now, and I think companies like CMON, companies like Mantic, to be fair, companies like Steamforged, they've really upped the quality of board gaming pieces, and I think actually miniature gamers could really like learn quite a bit from. Like, I think war games still feel very collectible. Like I've got a list build, and I've got to buy loads of different minis and stuff. Where I think board games, you almost get a bit more of a complete experience from them. You can buy expansions and things, but you almost get a bit more of a complete experience. Marcus says, my friends want me to learn Roll20 for when I host my RPGs. We did ours on Roll20, and Christian hosted ours, did an absolutely fantastic job. I don't know how much of that is Roll20 being good and how much of it is Christian being really, really well prepped and doing a fantastic job. But for me, as a complete beginner, knowing absolutely nothing, I found Roll20 really, really good. Christian says, if you want another game of D&D, I'm happy to run either another one-shot or a mini campaign if the players can commit to once a month or more. I'm 100% up for it, mate. I'm happy for a one-shot. If people want to do something a bit more commitment-wise, I'm happy to do that too. Let's have a chat about it, mate. Maybe something in the new year, once you get a kind of like Christmas and stuff out of the way. I really enjoyed it, mate, and I thought you did an absolutely fantastic job. So yeah, I would love to do it, mate. I would love to. Mark says, I plan on making 9 Warcry warbands, so when me and my friends get back to hanging out, they'll have a good selection to game with. Yeah, I think like getting people to play games with you is much easier if A, you know the rules inside out, or certainly well enough to teach them and kind of guide them through the game, and 2, if you can provide everything they need to kind of give them a go, to give them a try. It's really hard to get somebody to play a game with you if you go, oh, I've just bought these great new minis for this game. Do you fancy playing it? Oh yeah, I'll give that a try. Right, well, all you need to buy yourself this and buy that, and you'll need a rule book, and you'll need some cards, and like instantly it's like, whoa, hang on, just thought I was going to give the game a try kind of thing. Now I've got to spend 60 quid. If you can demo a game, you'll get much more enjoyment from it. Duffy's working on building a batch of Orc Art Boys. Nice one. Let me just scroll back. Tony says, I keep forgetting to use the Amazon link, but just had the bright idea of creating a shortcut on my desktop, and here presto, I don't have to remember. Do you know what it is, folks? That is a fantastic idea. If you really want to help me out in the channel, especially you UK folks now, because the US one, nobody ever used it, so it basically got shut down. If you copy the link for Amazon and you copy the link for Goblin Gaming in your search bars, in your taskbars or whatever they're called, then you don't have to worry about kind of clicking on the link. They don't change. And that would really help me out. It wouldn't cost you a penny more. It wouldn't help you, but it would really help me out. Thank you very much. Thank you for that idea, Tony. I should tell people that one. People having a few chat. Tom said, I hope Warcry doesn't fall victim to mission creep. The future of Warcry feels a little bit like I love the game. It's in my top 3 games ever. I love it. So don't I'm not coming at this from a negative point of view. I just feel like we've almost reached max saturation. There's not a lot more they can do to that game now. So, but they will still want to sell lots more things. So I do wonder what the future lies. Because I would have personally, like my own personal taste, I would have loved to have seen it being the Necromunda of AOS, where it had its own specific warbands. But if it gets more people playing, I'm happy with that too. But I just don't see where it can go now. Like it's basically taken up all of the different factions. It's pretty much taken up all the different model options and stuff now as well. The different choices you can have for your warbands through the Grand Alliances now as well are kind of, there's so many you can get. But I wonder what's next. Where do you go when you've included everything? Right, where are we up to now? Peter Koeman's having a bit of chat there. Nate's Miniatures says, oh no, it's BlackJack Legacy. Who let this guy on YouTube? That's the beauty of YouTube, mate. Nobody can stop you. Hello, Nate. How you doing? Marcus says, yeah, I started playing D&D in 3rd ed and the rules were crazy. But now in 5th ed, I feel they overly simplified the game as a whole. But 40k, I started in 4th ed and it was simpler and much better. It's interesting because I was watching a documentary thing the other day about... it was actually... It was a video which said, is Games Workshop going to buy Wizards of the Coast? Which was the title of the video. But it actually spent about like 25 minutes telling you the history of Wizards of the Coast and Dungeons and Dragons and the history of Games Workshop and stuff to see kind of how the two companies have grown. And one of the things that was really interesting was that basically, I mean, Dungeons and Dragons, they've tried to make it easier for new people to get into the game. And I think they've done a really good job of that. If it wasn't for that, I don't think we'd have seen the massive sort of popularity surge in Dungeons and Dragons. Because it's all right saying like, oh, Critical Role are fantastic. I think I'll buy a Dungeons and Dragons book. And then you pick it up and you go, well, how the hell do you play this? I think 5th edition has done a really good job of simplifying the entry point for new players. But I can understand that people who've been playing for years probably don't want the game simplifying. At the end of the day, the people who've been playing for years are not really the ones who are kind of making money for the company. The people that are the new people coming in every day buying lots and lots of new books are the ones that are growing the company. In the same way, I guess you could say for Games Workshop that the people that are sort of filling the coffers of Games Workshop are probably the new people buying new stuff all the time. Yes, there's a core of people who constantly buy new stuff, but I think it's the newer people coming in that basically spend the most money, I would imagine. Certainly, like individually they might not spend more, but I think as a collective, they probably do. Paul says, X-Wing 1st edition with just the basic Star Wars ships from the original films is still an amazing and fun game. Yeah, that was how me and my sons got started. I bought a starter set for it. We played it on... Actually, where we were at... I think we were at Salute. Me and my son. and we stayed overnight in a hotel just outside of London, and we sat on the hotel, like the hotel room floor, and played Star Wars X-Wing with the stuff that was in the box. Absolutely loved it. And then stopped at Beanie Games in Stockton on the way home the next day and bought an extra starter box. And I think we bought Slave 1 and the Millennium Falcon. And to be honest, we didn't buy anything else, but we played with just that stuff for a long, long time. Tony said, enjoyed RPG. My downfall was losing a regular gaming group. Yeah, I think that's me as well, mate. I need familiar faces, routine, and that face-to-face. I don't cope well with new people or pick up one-off play style. I guess just... Yeah, I can tell that, mate. I mean, it's... I like the idea of playing with a regular group as well. More just so you get to know each other. You can let the characters grow. You go on the story together. I really enjoyed the one shot because it's the only one I've ever played. And I guess as a complete newbie just coming in, the one shot was exactly what I wanted because I didn't even know if I was going to like it or not. But I can imagine if you've got a group of friends together and you kind of like people you genuinely like playing with, like, and you want to spend time with, like the idea of just getting a random group off the street to play Dungeons and Dragons with, it doesn't fill me with the same excitement. I'll be honest. Ian says, so is Dead Zone a board game? Dead Zone is one of those that falls right in the middle. I think you could consider Dead Zone a board game. However, there's quite a bit of list building, which probably tips it back towards the miniature gaming side of things. But it definitely straddles the line. There's not a lot of miniatures games. Dust was probably the only other one that worked on grids. Peter said, I like equally Necromunda and Warcry for different reasons. I never played Necromunda the first time around. I wasn't even really aware of it when it was around the first time. So I don't have like the nostalgic feel for it. And when it came back around the latest time, it just seemed overly complex. Tom saying, it seems like Warcry bridges the gap between board game and miniatures games. I think it bridges the gap going from a board game to a miniatures game. I would agree with that. If you've never played a miniatures game before and you've only ever played board games, I do think Warcry is a good starting point. I would agree. I think games like The Walking Dead are also a good kind of starting point as well, because it's played on a really small area. The kind of, like, you don't even need a tape measure. You get the little measuring stick in there that says walkers can move this far, kind of thing. Like that's the control area. There's a little template that tells you how far they can move and stuff. So, but I think it's not just about simple rules in bridging that gap as well. It's about kind of the intuitive, like the thing I like about The Walking Dead is if you've never played a miniatures game before, you kind of have an idea about what you're supposed to be doing. It's like, well, these are the guys on my team. The zombies are bad. I need to keep away from them, kind of thing. Like it feels like quite intuitive, if you like. Let me go back and have a quick look. Where are we up to? Ian says, are we all just board gamers with really large boards? Yeah, maybe we are. Maybe that's exactly what it is. Or maybe we're just painters who like something to do with our miniatures. James is up for some D&D. Nice one. You see, Christian saying, gets me in the works. Fab, mate. Honestly, I'm 100% up for it, mate. You did such a good job last time. I'd be a fool not to do it again. The Bard says, R.I.P. Warcry. I'm going to try and read this one now. Warcry, Rim, Age of Shit Mara. Thank you for your insightful words there. I'm really glad that you enjoy Warcry almost as much as I do. Lord Maiden says, make new warbands. They can, mate, but like... The problem is that only goes so far, doesn't it? Because then what happens is how do you balance a new warband against all the options that's out there? Unless you just go, oh, like, here's a few new models that you can add to like all the other stuff you've got out there. I just feel like it's almost already oversaturated with warband choice. Do you know what I mean? I would have liked to have seen it grown with new warbands. Nate's doing good, nice one. Mark's saying I think the best thing for future Warcry needs to be game specific. Yeah, but then you're never going to get rid of the all of the AOS stuff that's already in there. Thanks for your comments, Bob. I was trying to read them. They were difficult to read. Ed saying, if you find 5th too simple, try 4th edition Warhammer Fantasy Role Player. See, I think it's okay to find something. I think it's okay to find like a more complex RPG game once you are really into RPGs and stuff. But I don't know why you'd want to find something complex as your first one. So if people are saying, I find it too simple, but I think the people who find stuff too simple have probably been playing RPGs for years. And if you have, just play the ones you enjoy. Ian says the RPG community is a lot better about just sticking to the edition they like, whereas wargamers have to update if they want and have a larger pool of players. I'm not sure that's entirely the case. I think there are still pockets of wargamers who quite happily play a Warhammer Fantasy, or who play 3rd edition 40k or whatever. I think what happens is I think the difference is people who play miniatures games like to buy and paint miniatures, and generally what happens is if you want to play with those new miniatures, you'll need to play the latest rules, and I think that's kind of why people tend to move with it. The board says, I loved your fantasy stream. Midnight Rouge next. I don't think I've ever read Midnight Rouge, mate. Marcus says, that's why older players stop buying D&D books. Yeah, sorry, Marcus says, the way a lot of older players for D&D felt alienated by 4th and 5th edition, so we moved to Pathfinder. That's why older players stopped buying D&D books. However, D&D has never been more popular, so you might not agree with what they've done, but from a business point of view, it must be the right decision. It's a little bit like GW and killing off Warhammer Fantasy and coming in with Age of Sigmar. It doesn't really matter whether we personally like it better or whatever it is, or we were happy with the decision. Purely from a business financial reason, it seems like they made the right choice. Blizzard saying he's been playing D&D since 1st edition. I love 5th ed for the few things simplified. It more than pays off for the ease and flow of player. Yeah, I mean, for me, I've only ever played 5th edition. I've never played any other RPG, and it worked great for me. I didn't feel like more complexity would have made it better. At the end of the day, for me, it's about telling a story and having an enjoyable kind of evening with friends. And for me personally, I don't think making it more complex would make it more enjoyable. Like, I don't need. It's almost like, and I think, how would I explain it? The rules are not meant to get in the way. They're meant to be there to help you tell the story you want to tell. And I think that's where simplicity actually is a good thing. And it's not overly simplified to the point where you go, well, I haven't got a clue what to do here. Like, well, that doesn't work type thing. I just think it. I mean, I'm not the GM, I'm not the DM or whatever. But as a player, I thought it worked really well. Just jumping on my screen there as well. Ed was saying something. As well as the club games, I have a couple of regular RPG groups who play long-form campaigns, often over years. That's where RPGs are at their best. Yeah, I used to know a lot of groups who did that kind of stuff before RPGs even slightly interested me. And they would play every single Sunday afternoon, and they'd have campaigns that would go on for years on end. And I think what you essentially do is you've got a group of friends who absolutely love playing together, and there's nothing better than that. In the same way you get friends who get together and they'll play kind of leagues or campaigns for 40k or whatever. I think it's good. The bot saying, honestly, I think the old cipher. Not sure what that was about, mate. James saying, my good lady wife has agreed to try God Tier with me. It'll be our first minis game. I think honestly, if you sell it as a board game rather than a miniatures game, I think you're halfway there. Like my wife does not like miniatures games where you have to measure stuff. One of the things she enjoyed about playing Armada with me is the fact that actually the movement is kind of fixed. Like, you've got an angle you can kind of face your ship within, and you have to move this many inches forward because the ship's sailing at that speed. Therefore, you've got to move that far. And she liked that because there wasn't this kind of like analysis paralysis of, well, do I move this far, or do I move here and go over there, or do I go over there and do this? It's like some of that kind of huge option was taken out of her head, and basically it was more a case of how far do I want to go and planning ahead. And I think kind of selling a game as a board game is much easier than selling it as like a miniatures war game type thing. Phil saying, I think the original Warhammer Quest scratched the board game RPG itch. Yeah, I know what you mean, actually. I quite like Silver Tower for that kind of region. I know a lot of people like Blackstone Fortress for a similar kind of reason as well. UNK 2020 books are worth a shout now. Okay. Shout out Master Bob says, I can relate to that. I'm back into the 40k after 30-year gap, and our lass is slowly starting to come around. Hence the Sisters Army and her buying an Orc Army. Tony said, I played first edition and still have my hallowed books. I never picked up fifth as I didn't see the point. No gaming group. Yeah. Dovey said, I wish I had the chance to run some D6 Star Wars with my old RPG group. I'm not sure what game you're talking about, Bard, mate. Warwick says, I didn't mind fourth because after a bit I could understand how it worked and I felt some balancing between power levels. Yeah, all of that stuff. I think if I was getting to the point where I was worrying about power levels and balancing and all that kind of stuff, it's like I might as well play a miniatures game, I think. I might as well play a board game or something. For me, it is just a storytelling thing. And actually, in the same way that some things might not be balanced, things are not balanced in real life. Like, not all humans have the same strength. Like, so I can accept that things aren't balanced. And the fact that you're rolling D20s, it's the luck of the dice sometimes. Do you know what I mean? I think if I was getting into a point where I was really worrying about things not being balanced or like unfair, if you like, I think I've missed the point of what I'm playing RPGs for, I think, at that point. Peter says, we're all gamers no matter what. Sometimes you have to try something different, be it a war game, board game, or RPG. It's all about the people you play with. That's it, mate. Everything else is irrelevant. It doesn't matter how nice the minis are. It doesn't matter how good the rules are. If you're playing with somebody that you like playing with, you'll have a good time. If you're playing the best game ever with the most beautifully painted minis on a fantastic terrain layout, and you don't like the person you're playing with, you're going to have a thoroughly miserable time. Lord Mabel said, I know what you mean. It was just the new model warbands. They could continue like that for a while, but the add-ins from AOS does make it feel full miniatures-wise. Yeah, I feel like it's a bit like I can't think of many other miniatures games that have like sort of like more warband choices than that. Like, look at Kill Team. Kill Team's pretty much big. I know they're going to do something with it, but that's just to kind of sell some more stuff again. Kill Team's not going to kind of keep growing and growing. They might add some bits to it as new factions come out for 40k, but like, all I can think of is they might bring some extra models to like flesh out factions. So for example, let's take like say Untamed Beasts and Iron Golems, the first two factions. They might bring out a new box set for each of them to flesh them out. But the problem you've got is now you've got people like fractured across different warbands and stuff. maybe they won't want them. Maybe they'll do it as a tester to see how they sell. Part of me can just see them growing options through releasing more stuff for EOS, and that would be a shame, I think. James is saying, if it was the end of Warcry or bringing in all the OS stuff, then bring in the EOS stuff and hope for new Warcry specific warbands and rules. I honestly can't see any. Can I say it? I'd be surprised if we see many more new Warcry specific warbands. I think whatever we see now will be much more EOS focused. Mark saying 5th edition D&D is better than the trash fire of 4th. Oops, where'd that one go? Let me find where it was. It's just jumped off my screen. Here we go. Peter says, I think there are war gamers who still play Warhammer Fantasy. Guilty. Yeah, I don't think. I know there's some local guys to me who still play it. Warwick saying, Rolemaster is a complex RPG. The critical tables are wild. Fun out of print game if you have a good grasp of tabletop RPGs. If you don't, it's going to be tough. Pomsey, I think Stranger Things helped get D&D big again. I don't think it was. I think we do link the two together, but I think D&D was in massive growth just prior to that, and I think it probably maybe accelerated it. But I also, like, how would I say it? I don't think Stranger Things suddenly made people think D&D is cool. Do you know what I mean? I think it might have reminded people that that D&D was the thing. Like probably, like my wife probably didn't never grew up with as D&D being the thing for her as a kid, if you like. So it might have reminded people, but I'm not sure. It probably appealed to nerds who were already nerds. Do you know what I mean? Matthew says 5th edition D&D is great, and I've played it for years. As a DM, I can concentrate on the story. My family loves to play. Yeah, I think that's the case. Concentrate on the story. Scrolling down there. Lord Maiden says, I agree with your RPG rules. It helps set the world and such up, but I found the interactions the best. I turned a player into Mayor McCheese and had Ronald McDonald want them. A bit of chat there. Lord mentioned it was the most we had fun we had in a while. The boss said Midnight Rouge 30 something, but then there's a Black Sun Adventure book. The only ones I play on stream, mate, will be the ones that's on the app. I don't want to just sit here with a book reading to people. And the full range of the Fighting Fantasy books are not on the app, actually. Peter saying, speaking about D&D, new acquisitions incorporated is online. We'll watch it tomorrow. I don't even know what that is, mate. Morrison, I think the reason why at least the people I know do not like 5th is we all like the insane character customization of 3rd, 3.5 and Pathfinder. I think this is my point, mate. I think, I don't think 5th edition is designed to appeal to people who've been playing D&D for years. I think the people that's been playing D&D for years will probably be quite happy still playing 3.5. Some of them will migrate over to 5th, but I think 5th edition was a way to open it up to whole new players, because like you're saying about insane character customization, for me, like as a kind of an entry level RPG player or somebody with one toe in just testing it out, that's kind of confusing actually, like character creation. Like it's because you don't know what you're creating. Like you've no idea what effect it has like on the game. So what you want to do is you want to try and keep that as simple as possible. It's a little bit like let's take Cyberpunk as a game, for example. Like it's all right kind of jumping into Cyberpunk 2 or 3 weeks later when everybody else has been playing it and they're going, oh, you want to build your character like this because this is important and that's important and blah, blah, blah. But playing it for the first time, like when I started creating my character, I've got no idea where I need to put my skill tree stuff. I've got no idea where I need to put my skill points, what kind of upgrades I need to have and things. So what I do is I just put in what I feel like, what I think sounds cool, and I'll just play through the story and I'll just enjoy it. And that's kind of where I see D&D. Like when it comes to character creation, as long as there's enough flavour there for me to do something with it, that's kind of enough. The people that want to do crazy over the top stuff are the people that know how D&D works, and they know the quirks, and they know, oh, if I put all of my points into this one, it'll make this bit more easy. And I think sometimes they almost metagame the system and maybe forget about the story side of it and start playing it a bit more like a miniatures game. It's a bit like the people that metagame their kind of character creation are the same people who kind of metagame their list building in like 40k or something. Bit of chat backwards and forwards. Pomsy saying, I love the idea, but as BlackJack says, you do need a solid team of friends. Yeah, you definitely do, mate. And that's, I don't have that either. Like, not face to face anyway. Obviously, got you a lot. And if we could get like a regular kind of online session going, I would absolutely love that. But yeah, I just don't have access to a kind of like a local group. We're having a chat. The board saying Fighting Fantasy expansion books, blacks and gender using Titan out of the pit. Yeah, like I say, mate, I'd just be using the apps and stuff. I'm just keeping it simple for the streams. James says, what could bring me to an RPG is the fun, creative aspect and the world building, but the game system seems less important. I think you're coming at it from where I was, mate. Like I'm one game further in, mate. And I'll be completely honest, as somebody who had no idea of what to expect playing for the first time, had no idea of what I was really supposed to be doing, it still wasn't simple. Like, it still was like part of me, probably for my first game, probably should have just asked for help and just said, can somebody design me a character, please? So I haven't even got to worry about it, because there's still a lot of like choices you have to make. Like what weapons do I take? What do I need? Like I never considered things like putting armor on and all that kind of stuff, because I don't know. It's like I would liken it to saying, do you want to go on holiday? And you go, yeah, I'd quite like a holiday, please. And they go, right, well, pack your bag then, and then and I'll see you next week. And you go, all right, yeah, well, I'm really excited. Yeah, I'll pack my bag. And then you walk away and you think, where am I going? How long am I going for? What do I need? Like, do I need? Will my money work there? Do I need to get my money changed? Like, do I need shorts? Do I need ski boots? Do I need a warm coat? And it's like, that's kind of how I would say an RPG feels to a complete newbie. Like, you're basically you're really excited to do something, but you have absolutely no idea of what you need. And when I then go and do what everybody else does, I went on to YouTube and I watched all the playing your first games of D&D and everything else, and everybody is really nice and they all say, look, it's just a storytelling thing, don't worry about it, it'll be fine. But you still don't have a clue what you're doing. What I would say was Christian was really, really good with us and kind of gave us time to sort of took us like we had like little kind of like meetings online where he took us through the Roll20 stuff and explained how that worked, and when that really helped, and kind of sent us some background story a little bit and things. And like, Christian did a really good job of being that kind of intro DM, and I think without him doing what he did and the amount of prep that he put in, I think I would have kind of struggled. I think that I still enjoyed it, like, in the end, but I definitely wouldn't have enjoyed it as much. And I think that's the trick, really. It's about the people you're playing with again. Where was that one again? Oh, where did that go? Ed saying D6 Star Wars is one of all-time great RPGs. There's still a Star Wars RPG, isn't there? But I don't think is it D6 one still? Is it called? It's the FFG one. They've got a name where basically they've stripped away the Star Wars basically, and it's their own proprietary RPG thing now. I forget what it's called. The board saying Jackson and Livingston. Google them. Kind of know who they are, mate. I don't have to Google them. It's all right. Mark says, I remember the typos of Star Wars D20 first edition going nuts. Like Force Lightning was not a dark side ability, but using Force Punch on a living being was evil. Excuse me. Jeff saying, I'd love to try RPG. I'll be checking out the Discord to see what you all come up with. Being in the US, it might be hard to meet up with folks over in Europe. Yeah, I mean, maybe we can try and set up either acceptable time zones or maybe set up a couple of groups to get different time zones and things, maybe, if there's enough interest. Let's have a look. My G saying, hey, I'll jump out for a bit, do some fixings around the house, and I shower in, shave my head like a monkey ready for a shot out of space. Mine needs a shave as well, mate, and my beard needs a tidy as well. Marcus says, I feel like a number of Hollywood celebrities admitting that they play D&D went a long way to bring it to the limelight, and that nerd culture became popular. I think you're right there, mate. There's a lot of people who have kind of grown up, like they grew up in that 80s era, are becoming successful people now. They're the people that run League of Legends, like Riot Games. They're the people that make World of Warcraft. Like, these are the people that grew up playing Dungeons and Dragons in the 80s and in the 90s. And they are coming to places of kind of influences and places of power now. And I think that's probably what is give it that kind of second wind coming through now. And the fact that the rise of geek culture, things like Marvel films, and the fact that video games are no longer seen as kind of like nerdy kids type things anymore. I think all of those things coming together at the right time. And I think board games are kind of, they're catching up really fast. I think miniature games, like look at how Warhammer are doing now, Games Workshop are doing with like their animated series things that they're working on, the fact that there's going to be the Eisenhorn TV show, like the amount of computer games there are now. Like, there are people who know Warhammer computer games and probably don't even know the miniature side of things. Like, I think all of those things coming together at the right time. I think we're on the cusp of it. I think we'll see a bit of an explosion of interest in our stuff as well at some point. I think one thing that's probably held it back has been COVID in this year, really. The fact that it's shown that it's not the kind of thing that you can do on your own very easily. Paul says, I play D&D all the time, but I don't like it. It's an awful game. It's accessible, but it's awful. See, that's the bit I don't understand, mate, when you say it's awful. Like, it's just a framework to tell a story with friends. And as long as you're having a good time, how does it really get in the way? Maybe I'm being really kind of like naive to it. Maybe Christian did such a good job, I didn't really see the quirks of it. I didn't see the problems. Or maybe I just don't know enough. But maybe somebody needs to explain to me at some point why one system is better than another. Does one system stop you doing things you want to do? Or does another system give you so many different options to kind of fine-tune stuff that actually I probably wouldn't enjoy it anyway, because that's not the kind of gaming I like. Chat to most of Bob's, any ideas for getting the kids off the Xbox and back on the table? Do you know what it is, mate? Ordinarily, I would have said, look, like, you know, there's all kinds of like board games are a great way of doing it, or card games, or things like escape room games as well, where they've got like a little, like, it's an hour long thing and they've got some puzzles to try and do it and stuff like that. But getting them off the Xbox isn't always a bad thing. Like, can you imagine if they spend all of their time sitting painting miniatures? Would you say, give me an idea to get them off out from their desk painting miniatures and doing something else? Because actually, I think almost thinking of kids being stuck on the Xbox and just playing computer games all day as a bad thing. It can be if it's excessive, but actually there's a lot of skills that kids learn these days playing video games that we maybe don't give them credit for, like problem solving, communication, hand-eye coordination, like determination. Failing at something, like learning to fail and then coming back and trying it a different way to try and succeed the next time. There's actually quite a lot of like life lessons that are in video games that we probably don't think of, and I think I do it as well. We're probably still in that kind of like 80s kind of mentality of the video games bad, everything else is better for you. I think sitting painting miniatures all day is probably less healthy than sitting playing video games all day, if I'm honest. Peter says, Acquisitions Incorporated is an ongoing story using D&D. It's played on stage at the PAX shows. It's see it as a comedy adventure in a theatre. Okay, so it's like a live thing, mate, yeah. ASDF says, shut off the mains and bust out candles. You're getting all romantic, mate. Is that what it is? It says, if you like Cyberpunk, it's actually based on a really good tabletop RPG. Yeah, I knew that, mate. I knew it was an old RPG. I've not read it or anything like that, but I did realise it was based on that. Rob says, I just finished a trifold board for Combat Patrol incursion games using some of your old YouTube videos. Thank you, mate. I'm glad it worked. Lobin said, I'd be interested in playing a game with some people in the group, depending on the day and time. Peter saying, in the beginning, Will Wheaton was one of the players. Was he really, mate? I didn't realise that. Boss saying, check him out. Will do, mate. Ian saying, when I was younger, I had the stomach for rules-heavy RPGs, but now I like the simpler Savage Worlds or Fate. Fate really lets you do any type of game or character without any complex rules. Excuse me, I'll have a quick drink. I was listening to a podcast last night, and they were talking about something of blades or blades of something, and it was an RPG that is based upon doing like heists, like, so it's a bit like a kind of like some kind of Hollywood movie heist type thing, and the game is designed to kind of keep moving. Like it's none of this like, right, you're gonna now walk for 3 days between the village and the cave kind of thing. It was about just like moving from like action scene to action scene. It sounded quite interesting. I forget what it's called. It was definitely called something of blades or blades of something or something blade or something like that. Definitely had blade in the title. Right, G says, speaking of Kill Team, what are the chances of GW making Kill Team specific teams like they have with Warcry? I think they would do good, or even if you couldn't use them in a 40k army. I think the problem is GW like to sell their minis and stuff like that, don't they? So it wouldn't surprise me if we potentially see crossover. I wonder if I don't think we see crossover with Necromunda stuff. But I think whatever they do, you'll be able to use it in 40k. But I think the problem with that is you'll just end up with loads of marine stuff. It'll end up looking like Necromunda with marines, I think. It's going to be interesting to see what they do. We're obviously going to see some kind of Kill Team 2.0 with marines and Necrons in a starter box, I'd imagine. But it'll be interesting to see what they do. Because I can imagine it might just end up being tweaked rules, and then all the models we've already got are all the models that you've got in there, maybe. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do, though. But I think they'll have learned a lot from Warcry and its release model. Tony interested in the RPG as well. Yoakum saying, woohoo, just got my kids to join me in Warcry campaign during the Christmas holidays. Now they need to choose war bands and we can start to give characters names. I'm looking forward to Christmas because here in the UK, we've got this kind of like 5 days of like where we can bubble up with extra families. So obviously we're going to spend some time with my brother and sister-in-law. And Jason's, who I normally play games with. So hopefully Jason and I might actually get a game in over Christmas. Let me have a quick look here. Where was it? There we go. A bit of chat backwards and forwards. Phil Campbell says, when I play RPGs with my kids, CNC, Command & Conquer, Warhammer Quest, they don't see their character cards, stats. They just ask what they want to do and then roll a dice. That's kind of what I mean. Like, sometimes simplified is better. Age of Empire, Paul. Yeah, that's the one I was trying to think of, mate, the Star Wars one. It's a custom D6. I knew it was custom dice. I didn't know it was D6 though. Phil says, I try not to make them think about their characters. Yeah, I think that's the right way to do it, mate. Ed Hanley saying FFG now make the Star Wars games. Yes, Age of Empire. But I think what they've got is, mate, though, the RPG game that they've got, the actual the structure, if you like how D&D is the D20 system. There's a system that they've got that if you take the Star Wars element out of it, you can use that framework, if you like, to run any RPG you like. But I think it's got a name and I forget what it's called. Editing the also did anniversary edition of the old D6 game. The Bard, what are you talking about, mate? I think you need to read Gygax and Mook. I'm aware of who Gary Gygax is and the kind of the whole D&D stuff. Ed Hanley says, anyway, call it a night. Thanks, Ed. Take care, mate. Scroll down a bit. Paul saying 200 characters, not enough space to tell you why it's awful. Tony saying the rise of Geek Chic. Yeah, exactly. Christian saying, hopefully doubt we can figure something, get you out and everyone else involved. Yeah, nice one, mate. Dirk saying, speaking of determination, I'm off to bed. Nice one. Take care, buddy. The board saying Minecraft argument doesn't work when they're cursing the house for missing a 360 snipe. That's more to do with parenting, mate. That's got nothing to do with the Xbox. That's about letting kids play games that are age appropriate. If you've got a 13-year-old, like a 12-year-old kid, and they're playing 18-rated games, that's a parenting thing. That's nothing to do with the Xbox itself. Tasty Brindrin says, hold on, my cat needs more food. Blades in the Dark. I think that's what it was, mate. Blades in the Dark. That does ring a bell. Night James, take care, mate. Tom Ferris says, I'd like to see Kill Team become more like Warcry. I don't think it will, unfortunately. I think the 40k crowd like Kill Team as it is, I think. Jack and Master Bob says, have you tried Artis Opus brushes? I've ordered some. I've got loads of Artis Opus brushes, mate. I've got full sets of the things here. What's that just fell out? I've got the M series, I've got the S series. I've also got the dry brushes as well, so all of these ones. Zoom in there. Focus. There we go. What do I think of them? I think they're decent brushes, mate. I'll be honest, I feel like I'm falling back into using my Winsor & Newton ones lately, and it's because I like the shorter heads on them. I think that's what it is. I think I'm just, when I'm doing like finer detail work, I'm just used to using the smaller ones. But they're still good brushes, mate. You won't be sorry with them. TC Brain Drain says, okay, he's back. Nice one. Tony said, wasn't GURPS a universal RPG system back in the day? Yeah, it was, mate. Actually, I remember that name. Let's keep going. Phil says, Kill Team specific boxes or minis, like a Katachan themed Kill Team. Think of the Shadespire boxes, could be used as Elite. I can imagine that's probably what they'll do, but you'll need to be able to use them in 40k somehow. Otherwise, the way that you can use. Right, okay, so what they've done is they've taken Warcry specific warbands and they've given them profiles to be used in AOS. So if they do that in 40k, they'll have to do that in 40k. Like if they do that in Kill Team, they'll have to do that in 40k. Find a way to use them in. I think because of the way 40k rules are different, because of the customization of weapons and stuff like that, I think there's more chance of them putting stuff into 40k that is usable in Kill Team, I think. We'll see anyway, we'll see. Lord Maiden saying, Blades in the Dark is what we use for the Assassin's Creed RPG. Ah, nice one, mate. Bodyguard of Lies, good evening. Says, took up 40k in August, haven't played the game yet, just painting Necrons. My mate is down in Feb for 3 days of Kill Team. It appeals as a gateway game because it lets you try several armies before you commit. It does, however, I think it's great for letting you pick up small armies just as painting projects or just to play, but to see how they play in 40k, I think it's a bit different because the rules are too different, the play size is too different. I think these days now, the Combat Patrol version of 40k is probably a better way to kind of to pick up small armies, I think now. And that's why the new version of 40k, the new version of Kill Team, needs to be something special, because I almost feel like it's kind of lost the purpose a little bit. And the bots is waiting for a bunch of Mortal Realms issues. Martin says, I would love the Assassin's Creed games better if it wasn't for the alien tech part. I quite like that, actually, I'll be honest. The idea of kind of like the alien tech. But as a video game, it was a good way to create a franchise. But to be fair, I've not played them in such a long time. Tony said, I like the Starfinder system. Duffy McCoy says, I could see GW releasing a unique kill team based on Inquisitional Retinue Warband. Do you know what it is? When they released the Rogue Trader box, which pretty much didn't sell, to be fair, I think that was maybe where they were going down that path. I think they were maybe looking at individual warbands and stuff. And it just didn't sell, did it? So maybe that put them off a little bit. A bit of chat backwards and forwards there. Jess says, hubby's starting dinner, so I'm going to need to bail out soon. Thanks again, Andy, for a great stream, and I'm glad you're feeling better. As I said many times, look forward to streams. Thank you very much, Jeff. Take care, buddy, and enjoy dinner too. Peter says, I'm very interested in what 40k will do when playing games gets back on track. Hopefully it won't go the road of Uber Powerlist. It will definitely go the road of Uber Powerlist, mate. I think the problem with 40k is got now is there's new stuff releasing all the time, but there's not been enough like mass market play testing to make sure that the last stuff that was released has been kind of errated yet. And I think we're going to see that there's going to be this really weird kind of mix, I think, when people start getting games up and running properly. Let's have a look. ASDF says it's sad Rogue Trader didn't sell well. The Galapox sculpts were really good. Yeah, but, and I guess it was almost quite confusing what that was at the time. What saying the Rogue Trader didn't sell because the groups in the box weren't exciting as well. And weren't very good compared to what you did on your own. I think the problem that they did was they released it far too soon after the Kill Team starter box, because the Kill Team starter box had some amazing terrain inside it, which made it look really fantastic value. And then they released, that was like the next release. That was the next thing to come out, which was like really soon afterwards. Like we're talking like less than a month, I think, afterwards. So I think people just thought, well, no, I'm not buying that kind of thing. Why would I want to buy this full-priced kind of game like inside a spaceship with fake walls when I can buy this starter box which has like all this amazing terrain? I think it was a timing thing. Philson, some of the Shadespire minis have AOS stats too. I think they all have AOS stats, mate. If you want to use their Kill Team box in 40k, it comes with that loadout and is picked as complete squad. I'd like to see it go that way, mate. I'd like to see it go that way, but I think the problem they've got is they're so far down the line with it now that they'd almost have to kind of redo all the stats and stuff to make it work like that. We'll see where they go anyway. Where are we up to now? Tom said, I really enjoy your chats, buddy. Wish I could get a game with you. One day, mate. Who knows? Life has a funny way of these things panning out, so who knows one day. Thank you very much for your kind words. Mike G says, it's a shame the Rogue Trader Kill Team didn't sell. Great minis, had a doggo, and was the first time I had to paint pimples on a Nurglin's bum. Nice one. Hopefully last time as well. Everyone's saying night to Jeff as well. And that, folks, it is now 11:15. It's later than I thought. So I'm going to kind of wrap it up there, to be honest, because I'm flagging, if I'm honest. So, thanks everybody for being in tonight. Palmsy, thank you very much for your donation tonight. If anybody would like to check out the Patreon, I would absolutely appreciate it. I do this full time now. This is how I get paid. I don't get any paid promotional stuff. I don't do paid reviews. I don't do paid for Kickstarter previews, any of that kind of stuff. Everything I get, my only source of income is by donations, by people joining the Patreon, and by people shopping through my kind of affiliate links and things. And that's what allows me to stay completely independent and have these chats rather than having videos that basically means I've got to talk about the latest big game and just kind of pander to the masses. It lets us have these kind of community nights and stuff. So if you do want to keep making that happen into the future, please do consider checking out the Patreon. So thank you, folks. Thanks, everybody. Everyone's saying thanks. Great show. Thanks a lot, folks. Phil, just before we go there, Philton, have you seen the guys' Warcry Catacombs board where he's done the 3D walls? It looks awesome. It does look awesome. I bet it's a nightmare to play on, mate, because the walls will keep getting in the way. I've seen people doing the same thing with the Necromunda boards where they put all the walls up and then they go, oh, I can't get my tape measure in to measure this, and I can't get liners. It looks beautiful. It's a nightmare to play on, mate. And everyone's saying great night. Thank you very much. Take care, everyone, and I will see you on next Monday as well. It's Christmas week, isn't it? So let's have a Christmas party Monday night live stream, folks, okay? Take care. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do subscribe, and I will see you next week. Thanks for watching my video. I hope that you really enjoyed it. And if you did, why not consider clicking on the suggested video below to see more of the work that I've done. If you'd like to support the long-term sustainability of this channel, why not consider checking out my Patreon, where you can pledge and support from as little as $2 a month. And there is lots of different tiers and bonuses, which will give you access to a private Discord server. It will give you free t-shirts, free mugs, a podcast every month, and a number of other things, including getting your name at the end of every video, like these awesome folks who already support me now.